Chapter 401. In the Cultivation Alliance of the Hundred Flowers Valley, Yan Wuchen and the other experts at the end of the tribulation passing stage had already left. Everything seemed to have returned to normal. Over the past few days, it was rare for him to have such free time. Yu Qianqiu was bored, so he basically hid in his room and studied the jade archives that recorded the rules of the star chart circulation. He wanted to comprehend the remaining 3 star charts as soon as possible. In the vast sea of stars, the star paths were complicated. Perhaps it was because he was anxious for quick results, but it was difficult for him to calm down. He was deep in thought, but he was unable to connect the dots. As for Ze, she had just experienced the prosperity of the world. How could she stay alone for a long period of time? Yu Qianqiu simply let Wu Liqing and the other 3 bring her around so that she wouldn't keep sneaking into his room, which would disturb him even more. For the next few days, the 4 of them made Ze very happy. They had a lot of fun. Actually, Yu Qianqiu could tell that the 4 of them seemed to be interested in Ze, but he couldn't really say anything about it. A daughter of a family was sought after by hundreds of families. Whoever could pursue her depended on their ability. Everyone was on the same side, so there was no need for him to stop them. With his thoughts on his mind, he stopped in front of the window. Suddenly, he saw Baishan and the other 3 rushing into the Hundred Flowers house. He knew that they were probably looking for him. Sure enough, not long after, there was a series of footsteps and a knock on the door. Yu Qianqiu said, "Come in." After Baishan and the other 3 entered, they bowed in unison and greeted, "Mr." Yu Qianqiu turned around and smiled. "Why are you all in such a hurry? Is something the matter?" The 4 of them looked rather solemn. Baishan nodded and said, "The people that the Cultivation Alliance sent to the Eastern Sea to keep an eye on Yanbugui have sent news. This morning, several hundred flying artifacts filled with people landed on the Wuxia island. I'm afraid that the foreign cultivators are already prepared to make their move." "So soon? I'm not ready yet." Yu Qianqiu frowned. Baishan continued to say, "The Cultivation Alliance has gathered all the people in charge of the various sects to discuss this matter. The 4 of us have already been notified by the elders that the 4 great families will follow Mr.'s lead and follow Mr.'s decision. Mr., please represent the 4 great families in this Cultivation Alliance convention." Yu Qianqiu was slightly startled. He waved his hand and said, No, this responsibility is too great. I can't bear it." He knew what the 4 great clans were thinking. They wanted to tie him to the 4 great clans, and their target was naturally Bai Changchun. It could be said that they had sacrificed a lot and put in a lot of effort. However, if a great battle were to break out, his advantage was to be flexible in the dark. He couldn't fight head-on. If the situation was really critical, he could run away and hide at any time. Dragging the 4 great clans with him was not a burden, but it was definitely inconvenient. The strength of the 4 great clans was not weak, but now was not the time to be greedy. "Sir." Baishan still wanted to persuade him, but Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and interrupted. "Don't say any more. I'll tell you the truth. This time, my master has entrusted me with something else. I'll just follow along and play with some things. If I get too involved, it will affect my own matters. If my master gets angry, no one in the world can bear it." He simply used Bai Changchun as a shield. The 4 of them looked at each other. Baishan asked, "Sir, can you tell us what it is? Perhaps the 4 great clans can do something for the great ancestor." "I can't say that." Yu Qianqiu smiled and refused. The 4 of them begged again, but Yu Qianqiu wouldn't agree no matter what. In the end, the 4 of them had no choice but to leave. They had to report this matter to the 4 great clans as soon as possible. After the 4 of them left, he stood by the window and pondered for a long time. In the end, he went downstairs leisurely. He took a table, ordered some free food, and slowly enjoyed it alone. It was really leisurely. The shopkeeper of the Hundred Flowers house was speechless. He had never seen such a righteous person who ate and drank for free. He didn't know how long he was going to stay. Just as he was enjoying his wine, Xionghui came in from outside the shop. He glanced inside and saw him. He quickly walked over and smiled. "You're in such a good mood. I volunteered to invite you. Give me some face and come with me to the Cultivation Alliance first." "Invite me?" Yu Qianqiu was startled. Invite me for what? The lone cultivators nominated you to be their representative. You'll represent them to participate in the Alliance Conference. Xionghui smiled. Nominated me to be their representative? What a joke. I don't even know them. Tell them, I won't do it. Yu Qianqiu refused without saying anything. He subconsciously felt that there was a conspiracy. He had just rejected the 4 great clans, and now there was a group of lone cultivators. Who knew them? That's good. Why don't you go? Others can't even beg for it. Xionghui felt strange. Good. Yu Qianqiu's hand paused. He asked, what's good about it? The fact that the lone cultivators recommend it, you means that everyone recognizes your strength. They believe that you can protect their interests. That's what everyone wants. Isn't that a good thing? Xionghui said matter-of-factly. Yu Qianqiu was still doubtful. Xionghui cupped his hands and said, Yu Qianqiu, just give me some face and go. I've said in front of Elder Quan that I'll definitely invite you. If you don't go, I'll be laughed at. After begging and pestering, Yu Qianqiu finally couldn't resist his begging and was kicked out of the 100 Flowers house. On the way, Yu Qianqiu said solemnly, I'll see what it is first. If it's a thankless task, tell them to find someone else as soon as possible. As long as you go, I'll be able to report. Even if you turn around and come back, it's none of my business. Xionghui smiled. Yu Qianqiu looked at him in surprise. He had a look that said, You're so cruel. He didn't know when this guy became so smart. He used to think he was stupid. Actually, there were only a few hundred lone cultivators who joined the Cultivation Alliance. Their cultivation levels weren't too bad either. At the very least, they were at the core formation stage. Those with low cultivation levels were still worrying about earning spiritual stones for cultivation. They didn't have the time to think about how to integrate into the upper class of the cultivation world. Even if they had the intention, they might not even be willing to look them in the eye. Outside the Cultivation Alliance, Xionghui led Yu Qianqiu to more than 600 lone cultivators in different clothes. There were men and women, old and young, and their cultivation levels varied. Yu Qianqiu glanced at the crowd roughly, and found that many of them had higher cultivation levels than him. With a puzzled expression, he cupped his hands and said, I'm Yu Qianqiu. Although I'm also a lone cultivator, I don't know why I'm chosen to be the representative of the lone cultivators. The group of people looked at Yu Qianqiu with awe. This was the guy who had caused a stir in the past. A few days ago, he even killed 2 cultivators in the middle stage of the tribulation passing stage. It was said that he had taken a big bite out of the big sect's hands. It was said that he had 400 to 500 million. When had such a powerful lone cultivator appeared in the cultivation world? Not only did he steal from the big sect's mouths, it was said that he had also publicly threatened the other sections. Even the old devil, Yan Wuchen, had to give him face. As a fellow lone cultivator, who else could we recommend if not you? If it were someone else, we wouldn't be convinced. At this time, a man with a thick beard came out and cupped his hands. Mr. Yu, we are a part of the Chinese cultivation world. Now that the Chinese cultivation world is facing a foreign invasion, we are willing to do our best. However, although we have this intention, the other sects may not take us seriously. You have a high cultivation level and are famous in the cultivation world. Both the righteous and demonic sects have to give you some face. With you as the representative of the lone cultivators, I believe that the big sects will not look down on us because of you. At least, they won't let us be wronged for nothing. Therefore, we recommend you to be our representative. If it were someone else, I, Hongming, would be the first to be unconvinced. Yes, if it were someone else, we wouldn't be convinced. Please don't refuse, sir, we believe in you. The group of people chattered. So that's how it is. Yu Qianqiu looked at the crowd thoughtfully. If the sects were the regular army, then these people were the guerrillas. It was hard to refuse such kindness. Could it be that I have to be the guerrilla leader again? Guerrillas were good. If they could win, they would fight. If they couldn't, they would run. Most importantly, they had more freedom. They could also find an excuse not to fight head-on. This representative was worth it. Since you all think so highly of me, I have no reason to refuse. Shall I give it a try? Yu Qianqiu said. Thank you, sir. The bearded lone cultivator, Hongming, was the first to reply. The others also echoed him. It was not orderly at all. They were indeed the characteristics of lone cultivators. Yu Qianqiu frowned. The words unorganized and undisciplined appeared in his mind. However, he did not say anything and nodded to Xionghui. Xionghui led him into the Cultivation Alliance. As soon as they entered, they saw hundreds of sects representatives surrounding the flat ground, discussing nonstop. The big sects sat in the center circle. Baishan was also among them. However, he did not see anyone else from the 4 big clans. Baishan was probably the representative of the 4 big clans. Xionghui reported to Quan Deming and retreated. Everyone's eyes were focused on Yu Qianqiu. They had a strange look on their faces. This guy had become the representative of lone cultivators in the blink of an eye. Yu Qianqiu did not care about that. He grabbed a futon and threw it on the ground. He sat on the outermost circle. The small sects representatives on both sides subconsciously moved to the left and right. Although he was the representative of the non-mainstream lone cultivators, he was a person who liked to be in the limelight. Ordinary small sects would not dare to provoke him. The sects continued to discuss. Yu Qianqiu did not say anything and listened quietly. It turned out that the problem of manpower and financial resources had been solved. In terms of financial resources, the Cultivation Alliance would send people to supervise the sect's spiritual stone mines. Half of the output of each spiritual stone mine would be supplied to the Cultivation Alliance. In terms of manpower, the righteous sects would be led by supporting Immortal's island. The demonic sects would be led by 10,000 demons. The allocation of resources between the righteous and demonic sects would be coordinated by supporting Immortal's island and 10,000 demons. It seemed that when the sects faced the threat of life and death, the previous problems were no longer a problem. They were quickly solved. As for what happened after that, Yu Qianqiu listened to it. It was all about the righteous and demonic sects preparing for war. There was also the issue of spiritual stone distribution. No one talked about the lone cultivators. This was a good thing, but since so many lone cultivators had joined the Cultivation Alliance, why didn't the lone cultivators get a share of the activity funds? As the representative of the lone cultivators, if he did not fight for it, who would fight for it? He had just taken office, and he was not given any funds. This was clearly a slap to his face. Yu Qianqiu's face darkened. He slowly stood up and said in a low voice, "I have an opinion." Chapter 402. Everyone turned to look, and were slightly stunned when they saw that it was him. They did not know what he had to say, but his expression did not look too good. Qiu Wuyuan rubbed his head, feeling a headache coming on. It was fine if this guy did not speak, but once he did, it was hard to imagine what he would say. His opinions were always hard to bear. Why did he always feel helpless every time he met this guy? He sighed and asked, "Brother Yu, why don't you share your opinions with us?" Yu Qianqiu cupped his fists expressionlessly and said, "I'm not sure if everyone knows, but I'm fortunate enough to be the representative of the itinerant cultivators who are temporarily residing in the Chinese cultivation world." Everyone looked at each other. Baishan frowned and thought, "You're not willing to be the representative of the 4 major clans, but the representative of the itinerant cultivators. What's the meaning of this?" Qiu Wuyuan nodded and said, "Of course we know about this. What are you trying to say?" "I want to ask everyone. Every sect has a share in the distribution of the spirit stones. Why aren't there any for the itinerant cultivators? They are also willing to do their bit for the Chinese cultivation world. Why do you have to treat them differently? This seems to be unfair. I hope everyone can consider the itinerant cultivators and allocate a share from the budget." Yu Qianqiu said solemnly. "For money again?" Everyone was speechless. Qiu Wuyuan looked around and said, "This money was gathered from the daily mining of the spirit stone mines by the various sections. It is only natural for it to be returned to the hands of the various sects when it is needed. Wandering cultivators did not contribute a single spirit stone, yet they have to take a share. This is indeed a bit unreasonable. Brother Yu, you're making things difficult for us." "That's right. That's right. How can we split the money without contributing anything?" The sects roared in agreement. "Everyone, please listen to me. Yu Qianqiu cupped his fists at everyone. After the discussion died down, he continued, I, Yu Qianqiu, have always been the most reasonable person. I would never do something so unreasonable. Itinerant cultivators were weak in the cultivation world. It was impossible for them to occupy famous mountains and great lakes to mine spirit stones like the various sects, so where would they get the money to hand it over? They had always lived and died on their own. In order to survive, they often did despicable things, so the other sects did not care about them. To put it bluntly, no sect thought highly of them. Even so, but... Looking around, Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and pointed outside. He said emotionally, right outside, those unaffiliated cultivators who you don't like joined the Cultivation Alliance without hesitation when they heard that the cultivators of Wuxia are in trouble. They are willing to sacrifice their lives for the cultivators of Wuxia at any time. Their selflessness can be proved by the sun and the moon. Yu Qianqiu. Qiu Wuyuan couldn't bear to listen any longer, and couldn't help but interrupt. Then he looked at the reactions of the various sects, only to see that they weren't moved by his words at all. The expressions on their faces were very strange, and it was clear that they were thinking the same thing as him. Brother Yu, just tell me how much money you want. But let me make it clear first, if you ask for too much, we won't give you any more. Qiu Wuyuan was too lazy to beat around the bush with him. If he really went around in circles, who knew where he would end up, and the loss might be even greater. Yu Qianqiu's expression softened a little. It was fine as long as he gave money. For such things, if you did not ask for it, they would not give it to you. You would only have a chance if you asked for it. No matter how much it was better than nothing. Therefore he nodded in relief. Actually, they never asked me, their representative, to make any requests to the Cultivation Alliance. But I feel that with a stable source of spirit stones, the hearts of the people will be stable, and it will be easier to command. Senior Qiu, there are more than 600 people outside. How about 100 superior grade spirit stones per month for each of them? You're crazy. Qiu Wuyuan was almost roaring. I, the palace master of 10,000 demons, can't even get 100 superior grade spirit stones per month. You want us to give each of them 100 superior grade spirit stones per month for a group of lone cultivators? Yu Qianqiu, you've gone too far. The criticism from the various sects came one after another, and it was simply the anger of the crowd. Yu Qianqiu was stunned for a moment before he reacted. In recent years, he had gotten used to earning a lot of money, and he had almost forgotten that each faction's money was also accumulated over many years. He had never heard of anyone receiving more than 100 high-grade spirit stones in a month, not even 50 high-grade spirit stones. Some sects even distributed low-grade spirit stones in a dozen low-grade spirit stones. Of course, the people with high positions in the various sects could use a lot of spirit stones, but it was completely different from receiving them according to the rules. Damn it! I've broadened my horizons too fast, and I almost forgot the days when I was poor. How shameful! Yu Qianqiu said awkwardly. Please calm down everyone. I was too quick with my words, and I misspoke. I said 1 superior grade spirit stone as 100 superior grade spirit stones. Please don't misunderstand. I think you're so rich that 100 superior grade spirit stones are nothing to you, right? The Luo sect's Zhu Xianxian couldn't help but say. When everyone heard this, they looked at Yu Qianqiu in deep thought. This guy was young, but he had a lot of money on him. Just the money he had gotten in this period of time, 100 upper-grade spirit stones was not even a drop in the bucket. Zhu, what do you mean by that? Yu Qianqiu glanced at him coldly, and his tone darkened. He raised his eyebrows and said, I've said something wrong, and I've already apologized. Are you trying to pick a fight with me? If so, just say it. I'll play with you anytime. Zhu Xianxian was also a dignified Deluo sect's representative. After being provoked in front of everyone, how could he bear it? Even if he could bear it, he couldn't. If he didn't put on an act, he would be humiliated by Yu Qianqiu again and again. How could he face others in the future? He immediately jumped up from the cattail hassock, and Quan Deming, who was beside him, immediately pulled him back. This was something that everyone had expected. Yu Qianqiu, don't be so arrogant. You'll get what you deserve sooner or later. Zhu Xianxian roared, still unwilling to give up. The various sects representatives shook their heads. What happened in the past was already in the past, and a little humiliation should be tolerated. Since you can't win against him, why can't you control your mouth? Aren't you just looking for trouble? Yu Qianqiu sneered. Don't worry, if I really get what I deserve, I'll definitely kill you first. Hearing this, the group of people sitting cross-legged looked at each other speechlessly. They sighed inwardly. The current Yu Qianqiu was no longer the Yu Qianqiu of the past. Not to mention Zhu Xianxian, as long as he had a saber in his hand, how many people would dare to challenge him? They didn't manage to kill this brat back then, but now that this brat had made a name for himself, and his momentum was growing, it wouldn't be easy to deal with him again. All right. Don't talk so much. Can't you see the situation now? We're here to discuss a solution, not to quarrel. Qiu Wuyuan shouted. The way he looked at Zhu Xianxian was clearly telling him that he asked for it. The way he looked at Yu Qianqiu was complicated. If the 10,000 demons really recruited this brat, they didn't know if it would be a blessing or a disaster. No matter where he went, he would get into trouble. Those loose cultivators were really ruthless. They actually pushed this brat out to be their representative. Who knew what trouble he would cause in the future? Quan Deming helplessly pushed Zhu Xianxian back to the cattail hassock, then looked at Yu Qianqiu and said, Yu Qianqiu, it's impossible to get one top-grade spirit stone. Only the disciples who are always ready for battle can get one top-grade spirit stone every month. The loose cultivators that you represent have not been assigned any missions yet. How can they enjoy the same treatment as the disciples who are always in danger? You keep saying that it's fair, but do you think it's fair? That didn't seem right. Yu Qianqiu scratched his nose and said, Elder Quan, there are at least tens of thousands of disciples from all the sects who are ready for battle, and I only have about 600 people here. One spirit stone per person, that's only about 600 in a month. Compared to the huge financial resources of the entire Cultivation Alliance, this is a small amount. Do you think you can make an exception? He still wanted to fight for it. No matter how big their financial resources are, they're still prepared. Once the war starts, the consumption of elixirs and instruments will be huge, and they need to spend a lot of money to purchase them. Also, a large amount of money is used as a reward, and it's not something that can be given to anyone, Quan Deming explained. If it was someone else, they would have been thrown out long ago. Who would have bothered to bargain with him and explain so much? Then how much can you give? Yu Qianqiu frowned. Quan Deming and Qiu Wuyuan exchanged a look, and Qiu Wuyuan looked at the crowd and shook his head. Since these 600 individual cultivators are also members of the Cultivation Alliance, I suggest we reduce the spiritual stones given by half, and give them 50 mid-grade spiritual stones. What do you guys think? After a month, it's only about 300 top-grade spiritual stones. I think it's acceptable. Quan Deming nodded. I think it's acceptable too, Bai Shan, who represented the 4 major families, said. Hua Yinhua from the Moon Clan also said it was acceptable, followed by Yuan Jiukui from the 6 Paths Demon Clan. Everyone couldn't help but look at Yuan Jiukui. The first 2 families were still understandable, but since when did the 6 Paths Demon Clan stand on Yu Qianqiu's side? Yu Qianqiu was also a little puzzled. What did this old guy mean by showing his goodwill so many times? The other sects wouldn't start a feud with Yu Qianqiu over a mere 300 spiritual stones in front of him. The matter was passed almost smoothly. Although the money was a little less, Yu Qianqiu had his own plan, so he didn't argue too much. Just as he was about to sit down, he heard Qiu Wuyuan say, Yu Qianqiu, since those individual cultivators have enjoyed the benefits of the Cultivation Alliance, they have to be restrained by the Cultivation Alliance. They are not like the disciples of other sects, and they are used to being alone. If the situation is critical and they are needed, can you restrain them? Hearing this, Yu Qianqiu straightened his back and said with a cold tone, I have never forced them, but since they pushed me to be the leader, it's too late for them to not be restrained by me from the moment I stepped into this place. If one doesn't listen, I'll kill one. If 2 don't listen, I'll kill a pair. If worse comes to worst, I'll kill them all. Hearing this, everyone's heart trembled. This madman might really do something like that. At first, they thought that those individual cultivators were cunning and pushed him to be the leader. Now that they thought about it, many of them were going to be in trouble. Just as everyone was thinking, Yu Qianqiu suddenly changed the topic. He looked around and said proudly, "It won't be long before you see these 600 individual cultivators will be like an invincible army. Wherever I point, they will fight. There is no question of not being restrained by me. You will see." Chapter 403. Hearing this, everyone was stunned for a moment before they smiled. It was a fool's dream to command a group of rogue cultivators as an army in the secular world in a short period of time. Not to mention rogue cultivators, even among the disciples of the various sects. How many of them had the spirit to sacrifice themselves and put their lives in the hands of others? This matter was passed off as a joke, and no one cared about it. They continued to discuss the issue of coordination and command between the various sections. Yu Qianqiu sat at the back and listened to him obediently. The various sects seemed to be trying their best to avoid the issue of rogue cultivators. From the beginning to the end, no one proposed to assign tasks to the rogue cultivators. In reality, no one wanted to provoke him, lest this guy ask for money again if they were to get involved. Although it had nothing to do with him, Yu Qianqiu listened very seriously. After the discussion, he was the first to walk out of the Cultivation Alliance. Outside the door, a group of rogue cultivators had not left. They were chatting idly while waiting for him. As soon as they saw him come out, they immediately quietened down and looked at him, hoping to hear some good news. Almost everyone present was the best among the rogue cultivators, but rogue cultivators were rogue cultivators. In the cultivation world, they were like the poorest people in the secular world. They yearned to integrate into the upper class of society, but it was extremely difficult. Therefore, they hoped to use this opportunity to gain the recognition of the various sections. Yu Qianqiu paced back and forth on the steps outside the door. After thinking for a while, he stopped and looked at the crowd with a faint smile. "Just now, some of you questioned me as the representative of the rogue cultivators. You're afraid that I won't be able to restrain you at the critical moment. Although I've already patted my chest and promised, I still want to know the truth from everyone. Are you really willing to follow my orders? If not, it's not too late to regret it now, lest something unpleasant happens in the future." Yes. Many people shouted without hesitation. There were also many people who looked at each other and hesitated for a while before reluctantly shouting the word yes. It seemed that there were many people who wanted to make use of Yu Qianqiu, but there were probably not many who were willing to listen to him. Coincidentally, there were people from various sects coming out from the door. When they saw this scene, they all shook their heads and left with a smile. The meaning was clear. A rogue cultivator was a rogue cultivator. Yu Qianqiu took in the expressions of the rogue cultivators. His eyes narrowed and a hint of sharpness flashed across them. He smiled and said, "It's good that everyone is willing. There's something I want to tell you." Originally, the Cultivation Alliance's budget of spirit stones was only given to the sects that had contributed money. None of you had contributed money, so you didn't get a share. However, under my efforts, the Alliance agreed to let us enjoy half of the disciples of each sect who were preparing for the war. Each of you can receive 50 mid-grade spirit stones per month. Although the money is small, it has nothing to do with us for the time being. If there is a need for us in the future, I will definitely fight for it for everyone. I will not let anyone suffer a loss. Everyone's expression was a bit gloomy. The Cultivation Alliance obviously did not treat them the same as the disciples of the other sections. Amidst the silence, a woman's voice suddenly grumbled softly. "I thought what would happen if I pushed him to be the representative. I didn't expect it to still be like this. Then why should we be controlled by him?" Then a man reprimanded in a low voice, "Shut up. If you have something to say, go back and talk." Everyone looked towards the two who spoke. Yu Qianqiu heard the voice and looked over. In the crowd, there was a man and a woman who seemed to be a couple. Both of them had a cultivation level of the late core formation stage. The woman's clothes were revealing more than half of her full breasts. She had quite an enchanting charm. The man's face was fierce-looking and fierce. The two of them were avoiding Yu Qianqiu's gaze with flickering eyes. What a full and charming stunner. Yu Qianqiu clicked his tongue. His gaze was unscrupulously lingering on the woman's breasts. Then he walked down the stairs towards the two. The people in front of him made way for him. When he arrived in front of the two, he looked at the woman and asked with a smile, "I wonder if this beauty is already taken?" His gaze was still constantly taking advantage of her. When everyone heard this, they were stunned. They didn't expect that this Yu Qianqiu was also a lecher. At first, the two of them panicked. They thought that Yu Qianqiu wanted to do something. They didn't expect him to say something like this. After the woman recovered from her shock, an amorous expression appeared on her face. Her bright eyes were watery as she looked at him. The man's face was filled with shame and anger. He looked at Yu Qianqiu in front of him, as if he was trying his best to suppress his anger. He gritted his teeth and said, "Mister, please behave yourself. We are dual cultivation partners." "Oh, so that's how it is." Yu Qianqiu nodded slightly. He looked at the man and smiled. "I said before that if you don't want to listen to my orders, it's not too late to regret it. Otherwise, something unpleasant will happen in the future." However, someone just said that he was willing, but in the blink of an eye, he changed his mind. "He's clearly playing with me. What do you think we should do with people who go back on their words?" The woman already felt that something was wrong. She subconsciously retreated. The man quickly cupped his hands and said, "Mister, please forgive me." Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and interrupted him. He pointed at the woman and said, "Kill her, and I'll spare your life. Otherwise, we'll die together." The loose cultivators looked at each other speechlessly. This guy was going to kill someone if he was unhappy. Everyone slowly retreated, afraid that they would be caught in the crossfire. The man's expression changed. He and the woman both retreated. Suddenly, a cold light flashed from the storage pouch on their waists. The two immediately jumped onto their flying swords and tried to escape. Yu Qianqiu stood expressionlessly. In an instant, dozens of green lights shot out from his sleeves. With a hissing sound, they tore through the air and chased after the two of them. "Ah!" Two screams were heard. The green lights flashed in the air, and two clouds of blood mist appeared. With Yu Qianqiu's current cultivation, he didn't even care about the middle stage of the tribulation passing stage. How could two cultivators in the late stage of the core formation stage be a match for him? He killed them easily. Along with the shrill screams, many people immediately dashed out from the cultivation alliance. Qiu Wuyuan, Quan Deming, and the others came out just in time to see the end. Dozens of green lights returned from the sky and slipped into Yu Qianqiu's sleeves. "What happened?" Quan Deming asked one of the disciples guarding the door. The disciple immediately told him what happened. Qiu Wuyuan, Quan Deming, and the others looked at each other. This guy really didn't hold back. Previously, he told them to kill one person if they didn't listen. If they didn't listen, he would kill both of them. The group of loose cultivators grieved. Many of them secretly regretted recommending Yu Qianqiu to be their leader. They didn't know what would happen to them in the future. It was too late to back out now. However, in the following period of time, Yu Qianqiu's actions greatly surprised everyone. He spent a sum of money to prepare a one-piece black suit for every loose cultivator. He even specially embroidered the word, "Loose Cultivator," on the chest. Usually, he led everyone to tour around the 100 Flowers Valley every day. He called it unified training, but in fact everyone just had to follow him to play. Every day, he left early and returned late. When he returned to the 100 Flowers Valley, he paid out of his own pocket and treated everyone to good wine and food for free. The group of people was confused and didn't know what he was doing. In the end, they were too lazy to think about it and simply followed him. After all, they didn't have to pay out of their own pocket. Therefore, a group of masked people could be seen in the 100 Flowers Valley every day. Not only were they masked, but the word embroidered on their chests told everyone who they were. Such an unusual action naturally attracted the attention of various sections. They all secretly sent people to investigate. In the end, they found out that this group of people was so bored every day. They were either hunting in the mountains or catching fish in the rivers. They were completely mystifying. In the end, they were too lazy to send people to investigate. Anyway, it was a group of loose cultivators. Let that lunatic do whatever he wants. As long as they didn't cause any trouble. Zi also didn't understand what Yu Qianqiu was doing. After playing with them a few times, she also felt bored. It was more fun to be with the 4 people who flattered her every day. Therefore, she went further and further with Bai Zizong and the other 3. In the beginning, they didn't return for 1 or 2 days, but now they didn't return for several days. Yu Qianqiu didn't care about her. He still led a group of masked loose cultivators to train. Half a month later, Yan Bugui's side began to launch a few probing attacks. Several small sects were wiped out by them. The Wuxia cultivators immediately made a decision. They couldn't be passive. They had to take the initiative to attack. The people of the righteous and devil sects were urgently mobilized. After setting up defenses in some important places, a large number of elites began to gather, preparing to attack Yan Bugui's lair, Wuxia Island. In the headquarters of the Cultivation Alliance in the 100 Flowers Valley, except for some representatives of various sects, almost all the people who could be used were transferred away. The only one who didn't move was Yu Qianqiu and his group of loose cultivators. However, they also received a mission that was almost not dangerous. That was to help defend the headquarters of the Cultivation Alliance. On the day they received the mission, the people of the Cultivation Alliance who should leave had left. As usual, Yu Qianqiu led a group of loose cultivators to wander around. After arriving at a remote valley outside the 100 Flowers Valley, Yu Qianqiu looked around and gathered everyone together to give them a lecture as usual. After giving his lecture, he continued to circle around this group of people who were standing in a disorderly manner with a smile. However, today was the day he had been planning for a long time. Something was destined to happen. He went around to the back of the hundreds of people. His smile suddenly became strange. He faced the crowd and opened his 5 fingers. A divine sense instantly shrouded everyone. Everyone immediately felt that something was wrong. When they came to their senses, the surrounding scene had changed. It was the same valley, but not even a blade of grass grew. Around them, there was another group of masked people holding Dharma artifacts. However, there was no word loose cultivators on their chests. They had already surrounded them. The only one who didn't wear a mask was a red-faced, long-bearded man in green. The man with an extraordinary bearing sat on an unusually strong horse. He stroked his beard and said in a deep voice, "You have all been surrounded by me. Give up the meaningless resistance, and I will spare your lives." "Where is this? How could this be? Who are you?" The group of loose cultivators looked around in confusion. They didn't see Yu Qianqiu. In a panic, they quickly took out their Dharma artifacts and prepared to defend themselves. Guan Yu's phoenix eyes narrowed slightly. He raised his hand and waved. Without saying a word, the masked people around him each took out a handful of astral breaker talismans and threw them out. Bam, bam, bam. There was a loud explosion. The strong airwave shook the group of loose cultivators. Screams could be heard everywhere. Then, like wolves entering a flock of sheep, the masked people around them started a crazy massacre. Chapter 404. Yu Qianqiu. What? Someone screamed before he died. The rogue cultivators who had fallen into chaos were awakened by this scream. Everyone suddenly realized that they had been eating and drinking for free all this time just to numb themselves. No wonder they couldn't figure out the reason. They didn't expect the price to be so high that they had to pay with their lives. All kinds of curses were directed at Yu Qianqiu. The number of people on both sides was similar, but it was a completely oppressive massacre. A rogue cultivator released a flying sword to counterattack, but it was immediately shot down by the opponent's flying sword. Before he could react, he felt a chill in his back, and a flying sword pierced through his chest. Another rogue cultivator wanted to escape on his sword. As soon as he rose up, he felt a chill in his waist. His upper body tilted and was separated from his lower body, and his intestines flowed out. The surrounding masked men were all at the crossing calamity stage. They cooperated seamlessly with each other, attacking and defending at the same time. They attacked mercilessly. The group of rogue cultivators didn't even have a chance to escape. In an instant they collapsed. Cries of grief and indignation suddenly sounded, and then suddenly disappeared. If it weren't for the corpses everywhere in the valley and the strong smell of blood, no one would believe that the surprise attack ended in such a short time. As soon as the battle was over, the masked men quickly cleaned up the battlefield. The storage pouches and various magic tools were quickly picked up. The corpses were also quickly piled up. From the beginning to the end, no one made a single sound. Everything was carried out in silence. Yu Qianqiu suddenly appeared beside Guan Yu. Looking at the team members in the valley cleaning up the battlefield in an orderly manner, he nodded slightly and said, "My efforts were not in vain. There were more than 600 people. Why did you kill them all? You could have used them for your own purposes." Guan Yu got off the horse and asked. Red Rabbit seemed unwilling to witness such a bloody scene, so it turned around and galloped away. There are many reasons. I don't need to explain them one by one. Yu Qianqiu said indifferently. I wanted to use these 600 people to test the effect of your training. This is one of the reasons. Guan Yu frowned, and his gaze moved from him to the team members in the valley. After the masked team members gathered the corpses, a few of them took out fire talismans and threw them out, preparing to destroy the corpses. With a buzz sound, a raging fire ignited, and the bloody corpse was engulfed in flames. Thick black smoke began to rise, and a burnt smell filled the air. Yu Qianqiu's nostrils flared, and with a wave of his hand, a green fireball landed on the corpse. The green flames exploded, and quickly engulfed the red flames. The rapid rise in temperature forced the masked men in the surroundings to retreat. Not long after, the fire was extinguished, and the corpses were all turned into ashes. The team members quickly formed into two teams. The two leaders of the team rushed over and handed 2 storage bags to Guan Yu. Inside the bags were the spoils of war they had just collected. Guan Yu took the storage bag and looked at Yu Qianqiu. Seeing him nod, Guan Yu immediately turned around and shouted, "Change!" The 2 leaders flashed back, and all the team members immediately moved. They took off their masked clothes and stuffed them into the storage bag. Then they took out another set of masked clothes from the storage bag and put them on. After they were done, the words Rogue Cultivator were written on their chests. There were also 600 people, and they were exactly the same as the 600 people who had just been massacred. However, their aura was completely different. They lined up neatly and stood solemnly. Yu Qianqiu stepped forward, looked down, and waved his arm. Special Battle Team 1st Battalion, Special Battle Team 2nd Battalion, remember, your profession is a soldier. A soldier's profession is to never stop fighting. I have painstakingly trained you all for this moment. Today you will officially follow me into battle. Perhaps, this road will be filled with thorns, danger, and death, but I believe that you are the one and only soldiers in the cultivation world. You can overcome all difficulties and obstacles, and the outside world will become more wonderful because of you. We pledge our lives to follow the leader. Long live the leader! Long live the leader! All the team members shouted at the top of their lungs, and their voices echoed in the valley for a long time. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and pointed in the direction of Utopia's military camp. He said loudly, "There are close to 10,000 soldiers in Utopia. You are the first batch of members to officially follow me into battle. You are also the first batch of soldiers who have used the limit-breaking pill and spent a large amount of spirit stones to create. You bear the heavy responsibility of helping the latecomers to break through to the tribulation stage. Are you ready?" Invincible. Invincible. All the team members were impassioned. I don't think that every cultivator can live forever, but... Yu Qianqiu suddenly waved his arms and shouted, "I can guarantee you that your bloody battle today will give your future generations a land without oppression and exploitation in Utopia. Those with outstanding battle achievements. A monument will be erected in Utopia and passed down to future generations. Long live the leader! Long live the leader!" All the team members shouted again. After mobilizing everyone before the battle, Yu Qianqiu looked at everyone affectionately. Then he waved his hand and shouted, "Let's go!" More than 600 team members disappeared, leaving Guan Yu alone to look at the empty valley. After a long time, Guan Yu whistled, and Red Rabbit galloped over. He mounted the majestic horse and looked in the direction of Ethereal Palace for a long time. Then he galloped straight for the military camp. In a hidden valley outside the 100 Flowers Valley, Yu Qianqiu and a group of team members quietly appeared. All the team members observed their surroundings warily. With a wave of Yu Qianqiu's hand, hundreds of well-trained team members immediately spread out and conducted a carpet search. After confirming that they were not being watched, They returned and gave him an okay gesture. Yu Qianqiu nodded in relief. He took out 2 jade archives and handed them to the 2 battalion commanders of the special forces. He said, "This is a detailed map of the area outside the 100 Flowers Valley. The 2 battalions are to be divided into 60 squads. Look for favorable terrain to hide outside the 100 Flowers Valley. Try your best to form an encirclement. Take note. You must ensure that the communication between squads will not be cut off. If anything happens, you can respond to each other. Also, there are some things to take note of regarding your current identities in the Jade Archives. Read them carefully." "Understood," the 2 battalion commanders replied. Yu Qianqiu continued, "If you're discovered while you're hiding, you can tell them my name. Tell them that you're my men. If anyone still insists on provoking me after knowing my name, kill them on the spot." "All right, carry out the order." "Yes." The 2 team members saluted, then quickly returned to their squads with the Jade Archives in hand. These 2 Jade Archives were personally drawn by Yu Qianqiu while he was touring around the 100 Flowers Valley with a group of rogue cultivators. He had prepared them specifically for today. Once the plan was issued, the 600 team members split up into squads and spread out in all directions, hiding among the lofty mountains and lofty ridges. The long sword on Yu Qianqiu's back popped out. Stepping on it, he leisurely flew into the 100 Flowers Valley. He shook his head and hummed a Peking opera tune. "I was admiring the mountain scenery from the city tower when I heard the commotion outside the city. Banners fluttered in the air, but it turned out to be the troops sent by Yu Qianqiu. Under the twilight, he entered the 100 Flowers Valley. Many people found it strange when they saw him. Where had all the masked rogue cultivators gone? Every time, more than 600 people would return. It was truly a majestic sight. Why was there only one person left now?" Ignoring the gazes of the crowd, Yu Qianqiu returned to the 100 Flowers residence. He went upstairs and pushed open Ziyi's room. He realized that she hadn't returned yet. It had been 4 to 5 days since she last returned. He couldn't help but frown. He hoped that nothing bad had happened. Otherwise, Nongzhu would fight him to the death. Thinking about it, he felt relieved. With the heirs of the 4 major clans accompanying her, even if something happened, the 4 major clans would have their own ways of finding out immediately. For chasing one, he wondered if there would be a son-in-law that Nongzhu fancied among them. Ugh. If Old Man Bai's descendants chased after Nongzhu's daughter, what would happen to their seniority? Would Nongzhu have to follow the 4 major clans and address Old Man Bai as her ancestor? Yu Qianqiu couldn't help but laugh at the thought of what might happen. He shook his head and went downstairs again. He ordered free food and drinks. Leaning against the window, he looked at the rising lights in the market and drank alone. Now that he had calmed down, he seemed to realize that something was missing. After thinking about it carefully, he realized that the stubborn girl was missing by his side bang. There was an explosion in the distant sky. Yu Qianqiu, who was a little absent-minded, suddenly became alert. He looked back and was slightly stunned. A splendid firework bloomed in the night sky, with enchanting colors. Then, a few more slowly rose and exploded in the sky one by one. Someone actually set off secular fireworks in the 100 Flowers Valley? What a refined mood. Yu Qianqiu shook his head and smiled. He raised his glass and drank a little, enjoying the fireworks with the wine. The crescent moon that appeared behind the fireworks was particularly lonely. There was a river below the fireworks. The heirs of the 4 major clans kept taking out fireworks from their storage bags and placed them on the riverbank. Ziyi held a burning incense that flickered in her hand. She lit up a bunch of colorful flames and couldn't hide the excitement on her face. The brilliance of the sky and the brilliance of the reflection on the river echoed from afar. It was indeed a romantic scene under the night sky. These fireworks were bought by the 4 of them when they went to the secular world for fun. They were the kind of one-eyed salutes that could climb very high after being set off. They didn't know how many they bought, but the 4 of them kept placing them on the ground for Ziyi to light. Many people in the 100 Flowers Valley were attracted by the fireworks. Gradually, many people gathered to watch from afar. Now that the war in the cultivation world had just begun, the atmosphere was tense. The sudden sight of this made people feel much more relaxed. "Miss Ziyi, try this one." Bai Zizong held a firework that was as thick as a thigh and placed it on the ground. Ziyi took a new incense stick that Wu Liqing had lit up. She excitedly walked over and lit the fuse at the base. Bang! Even the ground slightly trembled. A bowl-sized ball of light rushed out and shot straight into the sky. Bang! It exploded, and the gorgeous colors spread across the sky. The expressions of the people below were also clearly illuminated. So it's these guys. After Yu Qianqiu ate and drank to his heart's content, he saw that the fireworks were still going off. He put his hands behind his back and came to see who had nothing better to do after eating. He didn't expect to see the 4 young masters sucking up to Ziyi. So beautiful. A woman murmured from the side. Yu Qianqiu turned his head and looked. Coincidentally, a firework exploded and light shot everywhere. The woman's face was right in front of his. When they saw each other clearly, they were both stunned. Chapter 405. Yan Zixia. Yu Qianqiu. Both of them were stunned. They didn't expect to meet under such circumstances. Then they looked at each other and smiled. An indescribable feeling lingered between the two of them. Yu Qianqiu smiled awkwardly. Back then on supporting Xian Island, he was lonely, so he picked her up. His hands touched her all over, touching all the places that she shouldn't touch. It felt good. Then both of them left supporting Xian Island. When they met again, he purposely avoided her. So, although both of them were in the 100 Flowers Valley, they didn't see each other. Yan Zixia's faint smile was mixed with some bitterness. She could naturally feel that Yu Qianqiu was purposely avoiding her. Now that they met again, she wanted to ask why, but she didn't know how to ask. Bang! The fireworks exploded, releasing a gorgeous light. Both of them saw each other's faces clearly again. Not talking wasn't a solution. Yu Qianqiu touched his face and smiled awkwardly. Why are you here? I saw someone set off fireworks, so I came to take a look. What about you? Yan Zixia asked. I also came to take a look. Yu Qianqiu smiled. Their conversation was simple and empty. Then, both of them fell into silence. They looked awkwardly at the place where the fireworks were set off. After a long time, Yan Zixia suddenly asked, Is the woman who set off the fireworks the lady in purple dress who was with you? Do you know her? Yu Qianqiu asked. I don't. Yan Zixia shook her head lightly. Who doesn't know Yu Qianqiu's name in the cultivation world? Who doesn't know that Yu Qianqiu has a lady in purple dress with unfathomable cultivation? You two are Dao companions? We're dual cultivation Dao companions? Yu Qianqiu was stunned, and he hurriedly waved his hand and said, No. He thought in his heart. That little girl probably doesn't even know what it means to go to bed now. Dual cultivation my ass. He pointed at Ziyi and the 4 young masters and said, Can't you see anything? When Yan Zixia heard this, she took a closer look and smiled. She could also tell that the 4 successors of the 4 great clans were pursuing Ziyi. If Ziyi was really Yu Qianqiu's Dao companion, how could he just stand there and do nothing? Turning her head, she smiled sweetly and said, That lady in purple is also a stunning beauty. She has been by your side for a long time. Could it be that you have never been moved? Why did you allow others to pursue her? Yu Qianqiu smiled bitterly and shook his head. He thought to himself, That girl's father is not easy to deal with. It's better not to touch him. Besides, I already have a few good women. I'm already satisfied. Yan Zixia looked at him in a daze. The little disciple of supporting Immortal's island back, then had already risen to fame. Could he continue his fate? Recalling the past, he couldn't help but ask, You owe me something. Do you still remember? Yu Qianqiu was stunned. What do I owe you? It seems like you have forgotten. Yan Zixia looked at the sky and waited for a firework to explode. She smiled bitterly and said, You promised to compose a song for me. If you really forgot, then forget it. Yu Qianqiu was speechless. Thinking about it carefully, he did casually promise her back then. He almost forgot about it. He didn't expect her to remember it. Dong 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 dong. While the two of them were speechless, suddenly, a melodious sound of a zither could be heard. Even the bang-bang of the fireworks couldn't cover its penetrative power. It clearly spread across the wilderness. It was obvious that the person who played the zither injected true essence into it. The two of them couldn't help but look at each other. They were just talking about a song, and someone was playing the zither. Wasn't it too much of a coincidence? The people who were watching the fireworks looked towards the source of the sound. On the other side of the river, under the cold moon and the brilliant fireworks, there was a beautiful woman in a red dress sitting on a giant rock that had been standing for God knows how many years. Her face was covered by a red veil, and there was a zither on her crossed legs. Her fingers were as delicate as jade, and the melodious sound of the zither could be heard. Although they couldn't see her face, judging from her demeanor, she must be an enchanting beauty. The people whispered to each other, not knowing where this mysterious woman came from. The few people who were setting off the fireworks stopped. The night sky returned to normal, and only the sound of the zither could be heard. Zi looked at Bai Zitsong and the other three people with a questioning gaze. The latter shook their heads, indicating that they didn't know who it was. I am a fox that has been cultivating for 1,000 years. 1,000 years of cultivation, 1,000 years of loneliness. In the dead of night, can anyone hear me crying? In the dim light, can anyone see me dancing? The woman plucked the strings of the zither and hummed a rhythm. Her voice was faint and moving, and it echoed across the wilderness. Isn't this the song you composed? Yan Zixia turned her head and asked. Oh, I think it is. Yu Qianqiu stuttered. His facial expression kept twitching. It was so interesting. The others couldn't tell who the woman was, but he could. Even if he couldn't see her, he could tell from the voice. Who else could it be other than his master's wife, the enchantress of 100 charms? He just didn't know why she came here to play the zither in the middle of the night. Zi was suspicious when she saw the woman, but when she heard the song, she couldn't hide the surprise on her face. Although she didn't know much about the world, Nongzhu was a master of music. Having been influenced for so many years, she could naturally tell the good from the bad. It was the first time for her to hear such a melodious and popular song. After singing a few lines, a sad story appeared in front of her. Isn't this song from Ong Kwangsung, White Fox? Bai Zitsong looked at the woman under the moonlight and frowned. Zi asked, You mean the song is called White Fox? I don't know, but many people say so. Bai Zitsong smiled. Zi nodded and said, It's a very appropriate song name. Miss Zi, you probably don't know yet. It's said that this song was composed by Mr. Yu. Tanfei smiled and said, You mean Yu Qianqiu? He can compose music? How is that possible? Zi was shocked. Then she shook her head and denied the rumor. Ever since she had known Yu Qianqiu, she had never seen that he had any talent in this area. It should be said that the man's words and actions were not even close to his ability to compose music. If he had half the demeanor of his master, she might have believed it. In short, it was impossible. In fact, this rumor had been around for a long time. But no one could imagine that Yu Qianqiu, who was known as a scum and a madman, could compose music and play the zither. Wu Liqing thought about it and couldn't help but laugh. He shook his head and said, It's just a rumor after all. Rumors may not be true. I also don't think Mr. Yu would do it. There's also a song called Dream of Mandarin Ducks and Butterflies. It's also a rare classic. It's said that it was composed by Mr. Yu. If it was really composed by Mr. Yu, then, hee. Before Jingzhou finished his sentence, he and the others started laughing. They all thought it was a joke. Dream of Mandarin Ducks and Butterflies? Is it better than White Fox? Do you know how to sing it? Zi asked curiously. Just as she asked, the woman on the other side of the river finished her song. The melody of the zither changed. After the first song, another style of song was sung. Yesterday was like the flowing water in the east, far away from me. Today my heart is in chaos, so much worry. Maybe it was because the song was really good. There were many fireflies flying around her in the silent night. They danced around her, adding to the beauty of the song. Jingzhou smiled and said, Miss Ce, didn't you want to listen to Dream of Mandarin Ducks and Butterflies? Here it is. Zi heard him, and opened her red lips slightly. Her eyes looked at the other side of the river. She was completely immersed in the melancholy melody and forgot to reply. The enchantress of 100 charms had extraordinary attainments in music. She played the rhythm of the song in a captivating manner. The listeners on the other side of the river were listening to her singing quietly. Yu Qianqiu's eyes kept darting around. He didn't know what she was trying to do by doing this. Suddenly, his eyes met with the Enchantress of 100 Charms, and a trace of slyness flashed across the latter's eyes. Yu Qianqiu felt that something was wrong. She might be targeting him, but he did not know what she was trying to do. When the song ended, the crowd heaved a sigh of relief. Suddenly, the melody changed again. Although it was not as familiar as the previous two songs, the helpless feelings that came from the other side of the river were enough to stir people's hearts. Under the moonlight, the red lips moved and sang. Don't talk about the past. Life is full of ups and downs. Even if you can't erase your memories, love and hate are still in your heart. If you really want to cut off the past and let tomorrow continue, you don't have to pester me anymore. The Enchantress of 100 Charms sang this song with great emotion. It was the first time the crowd heard it, and they were amazed. Yu Qianqiu unconsciously crossed his arms in front of his chest. He squinted his eyes and mumbled in his heart. What is she doing? Is she trying to hold a concert? He turned his head to look at Yin Zixia. Seeing her infatuated face, Yu Qianqiu opened his mouth, but he was speechless. He only felt goosebumps all over his body. Ziyi's eyes widened. She subconsciously pulled Bai Zizong and asked, "What's the name of this song?" Ah. Bai Zizong came back to his senses. He shook his head and said, "It sounds good, but I've never heard it before. I don't know what it's called. Maybe I'm ignorant. Do you guys know?" He asked Wu Liqing and the other two. The three of them thought hard and shook their heads, indicating that they didn't know. Ziyi was a little disappointed. She wanted to ask the other side of the river, but she was afraid that she would disturb the other party's performance. She could only listen to the other side of the river quietly until the song ended. After the song ended, the Enchantress of 100 Charms pressed her hands on the strings to stop the lingering sound. She stood on the huge rock with the guqin in her arms. Under the moonlight, even the red veil could not hide her graceful figure. One of her hands gently pulled down the veil that covered half of her face. Her charming face was finally revealed in front of everyone. Those who knew her exclaimed, "The Enchantress of Enchanted Palace! So it's her. I was wondering why she looked so familiar." After the Enchantress of Enchanted Palace was wiped out, didn't she go into hiding? Why is she here to play the guqin? The crowd whispered to each other in surprise. The Enchantress of 100 Charms looked around and giggled. "I've been hiding for so many years. I didn't expect so many people to recognize me. How rare." Yu Qianqiu was slightly stunned. She had revealed her identity again. It seemed that she wanted to come out openly. At this moment, a burst of laughter came from behind him. I was wondering who was in the mood. So it's Palace Master Yi. Yu Qianqiu turned around and saw a group of people standing behind him. They were probably attracted by the sound of the guqin. Dong Fengchang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan stood side by side. The one who laughed was Qiu Wuyuan. He flashed over the crowd and landed in front of the huge rock across the river. So it's the leader of 10,000 demons, Elder Qiu. The Enchantress of 100 Charms glanced at him. Her expression was indifferent and a little rude. The enchantment palace was destroyed, but the leader of 10,000 demons did not help. She was a little unhappy. Qiu Wuyuan smiled awkwardly. "Palace Master Yi, I haven't seen you for many years. I didn't expect you to be as powerful as ever. The war of the cultivation world has just begun, and we need a master like you to join us." Yu Qianqiu nodded secretly. It was the first time he heard that the Enchantress of 100 Charms' surname was Yi. The enchantment palace is gone. What does the war of the cultivation world have to do with me? I don't want to participate in the war. I'm only here to visit a friend. The Enchantress of 100 Charms bluntly refused, and turned to look at Yu Qianqiu. She resumed her charming smile and said, "I have lived in seclusion for many years and am fond of music. By chance, I ran into the composer of The White Fox and the Mandarin Duck in Butterfly Dream, so I asked him for a song. Just now, I played and sang, 'Love has become a thing of the past.' Recently, I suddenly heard that Sir appeared in 100 Flowers Valley again, so I came to pay a visit, hoping to learn another song." Everyone followed her gaze. It was none other than Yu Qianqiu, whose expression was twitching. They were in an uproar. Could it be that he really composed those songs? Z by Zizong, and the others turned around. They were still in disbelief when they saw it was Yu Qianqiu. Yan Zixia believed it without a doubt, because she had seen it with her own eyes. She asked in a low voice, "The song just now was called Love is Past?" Damn it! What was this woman trying to do? Yu Qianqiu looked around and smiled at the enchantress of 100 charms. "Palace Master Yi, you're being too polite. It's just a joke. It's not worth asking for advice. I've come all the way here. Are you going to let me go home disappointed?" The enchantress of 100 charms laughed. Although it was a joke, Yu Qianqiu felt that there was a hint of threat in it, which made him very unhappy. He looked at Yan Zixia beside him and thought to himself, "Forget it. I'll just take it as fulfilling my promise to her." He threw out a green flying sword and flew to the enchantress of 100 charms. He glared at her. The enchantress of 100 charms did not mind. She smiled charmingly and pushed the zither in her hand to him. She then gave way to him, and floated to the bottom of the giant rock. Yu Qianqiu held the zither with one hand, and looked at Yan Zixia. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Back then, I promised someone that I would compose a song for her. Unfortunately, I've never fulfilled my promise. I'm ashamed that she asked me about it today. I'll just borrow your zither to fulfill my promise." He sat down with his legs crossed. He closed his eyes and pondered for a while. He randomly picked a song from his memory and brewed it. When he opened his eyes, his fingers were already playing the zither skillfully. The clear and refreshing sound of the zither weaved out a beautiful melody, and the people on the other side of the river were immediately stunned. Qiu Wuyuan stared at the fingers that were playing the zither. He realized that it was not an act. His mouth turned into a circle. Bai Zizong and the other three looked at each other. They said that it was impossible just now, but it became a reality in the blink of an eye. Zi's mouth was opened so wide that an egg could be stuffed in it. It was unbelievable. Chapter 406. The temptress turned to the other side of the river, trying to find the person Yu Qianqiu promised, but it was hard to confirm. Others might not understand, but Yan Zixia did. The person Yu Qianqiu was talking about was her. Her beautiful eyes were slightly watery, but fortunately, it was hard for others to see it due to the dim moonlight. The melody was clear, and under the moonlight, it gave off a free and easy feeling. Yu Qianqiu looked around with a calm smile on his face, and echoed the melody. "The world of mortals is funny, infatuation is the most boring, arrogance is good. This life is not over, but the heart has no worries. I just want to be free for the rest of my life. Smile to people when awake, forget everything in dreams, sigh that the sky darkens too early. The next life is unpredictable, love and hate are written off, I sing to wine. I only want to be happy until I grow old." The surprise on everyone's faces had turned into an attentive expression. The troubles in their hearts seemed to have dissipated along with the song. They were all immersed in it, and some even swayed left and right involuntarily with the melody. Was this the guy who was filthy and immoral? This guy actually had this side to him. Qiu Wuyuan, who was below, was petrified on the spot with a blank face. Zi, who was on the other side, was completely dumbfounded. Elder Bai's disciple was indeed not an ordinary person. "The world of mortals is funny, infatuation is the most boring. Are you talking to me, comforting me? So you have always known my heart." Yan Zixia mumbled as if she was dreaming. The moonlight was dim, the river was flowing, the fireflies were dancing, and the breeze was cool. As he sang and sang, Yu Qianqiu also entered the state of mind. His expression was transcendent, and there was a faint smile on his face as he looked at the fireflies resting on his shoulder. They were singing to their heart's content under the moonlight. He said, "No matter how cold the wind is, I don't want to escape. No matter how beautiful the flowers are, I don't want them. The higher the sky, the narrower the heart. No matter how much karma there is, I get drunk alone. I cry today, I laugh tomorrow, I don't expect anyone to understand. I'm full of pride. The song is singing, the dance is dancing, the night is long, and the dawn is looking for happiness." After repeating the catchy melody a few times, everyone had already memorized it. Many people were humming it softly, realizing that this song could relieve their worries. Music will eventually come to an end, and beauty cannot be preserved forever. The music slowly came to an end. Everyone was still immersed in the joy. Yu Qianqiu nodded slightly. It seemed that the performance was quite effective. Suddenly, he discovered that the Enchantress of 100 Charms was looking at him with a smile, full of ill intentions. He could not help but frown. Without saying a word, he picked up the zither on his knee and tossed it back to the other party. The Enchantress of Allure caught the zither that was rolling over, and gently held it in her arms. Her face was filled with an enchanting smile as she let out a burst of bell-like giggles. She seemed to be very proud, which woke everyone up with a start. When everyone looked at Yu Qianqiu again, their gazes were filled with deep veneration. To be able to improvise such a beautiful and classic song, how many people in the world could do it? He was simply a heaven-sent genius. Qiu Wuyuan smacked his lips and swallowed his saliva. He did not understand music, but he could intuitively tell that it was beautiful. Even a boorish person like him wanted to let go of everything and have a good time after listening to it. It was obvious that this song was extraordinary. Looking at Yu Qianqiu, he shook his head and exclaimed. This guy was not only good at acting shamelessly and fighting, but he could also play such a gentle song. It was really surprising. What a talent! What a gentle scum! Yu Qianqiu stood up and was about to leave when the Enchantress of 100 Charms asked with a smile. Mister, are you going to leave like this? A good song needs a good name. Since Mister has left the song, you should at least tell us the name of the song. Everyone looked at Yu Qianqiu and nodded slightly. This thing was not a treasure. It was not like he could eat it if he kept it in his mouth. Without hesitation, Yu Qianqiu said, let's call it Xiao Hongqian. Xiao Hongqian? That Xiao Hongqian from Hongqian is so funny. Good name. The Enchantress of 100 Charms' eyes lit up and nodded in praise. Everyone else also whispered to each other. Yu Qianqiu took out a green flying sword from his long sleeve and stepped on it. The Enchantress of 100 Charms carried her zither and followed behind him. Yu Qianqiu looked back and immediately stopped in the air. The Enchantress of 100 Charms also stopped with a smile. Palace Lord Yi, why are you following me? Yu Qianqiu was surprised. The Enchantress of 100 Charms plucked the zither in her arms with a few fingers. After a few tinkles, she smiled and said, of course, to go back with Mister and continue to learn from you. It's too late. It's not convenient. Let's talk about it another day. Yu Qianqiu looked at the people below and said with a twitching face. The Enchantress of 100 Charms giggled and said, late? It's better if it's late. No one will disturb us in the dead of night. It's a good time to learn from you. Yu Qianqiu's body swayed, and he almost fell off the sword. He looked at her translucent clothes and thought, Masteress, you're playing with me. There are so many people below, and you dare to say such obscure words. What will others think if you go back with me dressed like this? Everyone below looked at each other in dismay. The Enchantress of 100 Charms was famous for her charm. Although no one had seen her affairs with their own eyes, her dissolute reputation had long been widely known in the cultivation world. Now this scum was suitable for a slut. Everyone thought so. Fortunately, Yu Qianqiu didn't know what the people below were thinking. Otherwise, he would have to summon the special forces and start a massacre. Brat, you destroyed my pavilion. I haven't settled the score with you yet, and you refuse to show me. The Enchantress of 100 Charms was smiling on the surface, but she was secretly threatening him with telepathy. Yu Qianqiu's face froze. He opened his mouth but didn't say anything. His cultivation was not high enough, so he couldn't explain with telepathy. The two of them were in a stalemate in the air for a while. In the end, Yu Qianqiu gave way and flew into the 100 Flowers Valley dejectedly. The Enchantress of 100 Charms giggled and followed him. The next life is unpredictable. Love and hate are written off. Is this what you want to tell me? Yan Zixia, who was below, turned around in a daze and was still murmuring. Once this woman started to let her imagination run wild, anything could fit the situation. Even 10 bulls couldn't pull her back. No, 10,000 bulls couldn't pull her back. After watching the show, the crowd left happily. They couldn't help but sigh. They didn't expect Yu Qianqiu to have such a trick up his sleeve. You really can't judge a book by its cover. Miss Ziyi. Wu Liqing passed her another incense stick and said, "There are still many fireworks left. Let's continue." Yes, let's continue. Bai Zizong and the other two agreed. They immediately took out fireworks from their storage pouches and started to place them on the ground. Ziyi took the incense stick and lit a fuse. She watched as a ray of light shot into the sky and exploded. Although the colors were still beautiful, she didn't have the mood to start. Her lips were slightly pouting, showing a lack of interest. She looked at the four men who were placing the fireworks. She couldn't help but compare them with Yu Qianqiu. Then she frowned and thought, as expected of the disciples of the aristocratic families, they only know how to play all day and follow behind women. What a loser. It seems that when I was with him, I was always behind him. He was busy all day, and I rarely saw him stop. I was fine with him. Why would I hang out with these vulgar people and play with children's things? So vulgar. Damn it. I've been with him for so long. He never told me that he knows how to play the guqin and compose music. Liar. Ziyi's pretty face turned cold. She threw the incense stick on the ground and turned to leave. Miss Ziyi, where are you going? There are many fireworks here. Bai Zizong shouted. The other three were stunned. You guys play. I'm going back, Ziyi said without turning her head. We'll go with you. The four of them said in unison. Ziyi's face darkened. She turned around and shouted, "Don't follow me." Then she left quickly. The four of them watched her figure disappear under the moonlight. When they came back to their senses, they couldn't help but look at each other. They didn't know why Ziyi suddenly lost her temper. They didn't know what Ziyi was thinking. If they knew, they would definitely shout that they were innocent. It's not that you wanted to play. Who would play with a cultivator? We're playing with you, but you're saying that we're vulgar. What happened? Did someone make her angry? Tan Fei was shocked. Wu Liqing shook his head. Who dared to make her angry? Maybe she's tired of playing with them. Sigh. A woman's heart is so hard to understand. Beautiful women are even more so. Looks like we need to find something new. Bai Zizong nodded in agreement. Jingzhou pointed at the fireworks on the ground. What about these? I still have a lot in my storage bag. It's not a good thing to keep these things in my storage bag. They could turn into explosives if something goes wrong. What else can we do? She asked us to play, so we'll play. Who knows what she's thinking? This woman is like a kid. Maybe she'll come back when she's interested. Wu Liqing squatted on the ground and lit up a bunch. Whoosh. Bang. The fireworks rose into the sky. The other three looked at each other and lit some incense as well. The four of them played until midnight. When they thought that Ziyi wouldn't come back, they were so angry that they poured the rest of the fireworks in their storage bags into the river. On the other side, Yu Qianqiu and 100 Charms Beauty had just arrived at 100 Flowers' house. When they heard the fireworks exploding again, they only looked back. After entering, Yu Qianqiu knocked on the counter and said, "Shopkeeper, prepare another empty room for me." Just as the shopkeeper nodded, 100 Charms Beauty smiled and said, "There's no need." Yu Qianqiu turned around happily and said, "Palace Master Yi, do you have something to do and have to leave? Do you want me to send you off?" He was really afraid of her. It would be great if he could send her off. Who knew that as soon as he finished speaking, the 100 Charm Enchantress would secretly stretch out a sharp index finger and directly poke his waist, causing him to grimace in pain. "What? Do you want to chase me away?" 100 Charms Beauty smiled and said. "No, you misunderstood." Yu Qianqiu clenched his teeth and said. 100 Charms Beauty looked up and nodded. "That's good. I have something to talk to you about. Bring me to your room." That's not very convenient." Hiss. Just as Yu Qianqiu opened his mouth, he felt another sharp pain on his waist. He didn't dare to say anything else and quickly went upstairs. 100 Charms Beauty nodded and smiled at the shopkeeper. Then, she followed Yu Qianqiu. The shopkeeper felt his bones become lighter. Chapter 407. When he reached the door, Yu Qianqiu hesitated and didn't open the door. He kept looking at both ends of the corridor as if he was afraid of being seen. The Allure Beauty swayed her hips as she walked over and asked, "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Yu Qianqiu shook his head. The allure beauty stared at the door and asked in confusion. Then why don't you go in? Is there a woman hiding in there, and you're afraid I'll find her? She pushed the door open and walked in. She looked around the room, even under the bed, but she didn't find anything suspicious. When she turned around, she saw him still standing at the door as if there was a ghost inside, and he didn't dare to come in. Is this your room? The 100 Charms enchantress asked. Seeing him nod his head in agreement, she couldn't help but ask curiously, then why are you standing outside? She walked to the door and dragged Yu Qianqiu into the room, closing the door behind her. Yu Qianqiu staggered and looked back. His heart was pounding. He quickly walked to the window and opened it. He looked outside and said to himself, the room seems a little stuffy. He stayed by the window and didn't move. No matter how he looked at it, he felt like jumping out of the window to escape. The allure beauty was slightly stunned and immediately understood what was going on. This bad guy was afraid of being molested by her. She immediately laughed and said, Yo, look at you, are you afraid that I'll eat you? Yu Qianqiu was a little embarrassed by her words. He thought to himself, she's not afraid, so why should I be afraid? He looked outside the window and closed it. He walked to the round table in the middle of the room and sat down. He smiled bitterly and said, Master's wife, what are you playing at? I'm looking for a reason to look for you openly. I'll also help you make a name for yourself in the cultivation world. If you have any complaints, you can only blame yourself for not greeting your master's wife when you come out. You're looking down on me too much. Could it be that you want to dump me after using me? The allure temptress said coquettishly. Then she walked in front of him and put one hand on his shoulder. She leaned over and whispered in his ear. What are you playing at this time? You're not going to play around and leave this time, are you? Why does it sound so ambiguous? Yu Qianqiu felt the delicate body leaning against his back and was truly speechless. What the hell was going on? He said helplessly, Master's wife, just say it. What do you want from me? Haven't I said it already? Of course, I'm here to ask you, Mr. Yu Qianqiu. Master's wife, don't joke around. After saying that, Yu Qianqiu wanted to stand up. However, a pair of slender hands pressed him back down. The enchantress of allure pinched his shoulders with just the right amount of strength, and said in a sorrowful voice, My magical fantasy palace no longer exists, and now I'm all alone. If you think my craftsmanship is passable, then please accept me as a poor person. I'm willing to stay by your side and serve you. What kind of nonsense is this? Yu Qianqiu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He looked back and said, Master's wife, please stop. I really don't have the fortune to enjoy it. If you need my help, just say it. At this time, footsteps stopped outside the door. The two of them stopped talking and laughed. Then there was a knock on the door. Ziyi shouted, Yu Qianqiu. The fireworks were still going off. Why did this girl come back? Yu Qianqiu shrugged his shoulders and said, Come in. However, the enchantress of 100 Charms' hands refused to leave his shoulders. Instead, she began to knead more and more seriously, as if she was a servant that was being ordered around. Ziyi pushed open the door and entered. When she saw this scene, she was momentarily stunned. She turned around and closed the door. She directly sat in front of Yu Qianqiu and glared at the 100 Charms beauty who was behind him, massaging his shoulders. In terms of appearance, Ziyi was better than the allure beauty. However, in terms of femininity, Ziyi was far from it. The allure beauty's frown and movement were well trained. Even women would be moved by her, let alone men. Ziyi was like a green apple. It was a little bitter. The allure beauty was like a red strawberry. It was as if one bite would fill one's mouth with juice. Ziyi didn't care about these things. However, it was a woman's nature to love beauty. It was inevitable that they would compare each other. However, the allure beauty's unique charm was unparalleled. It made her feel inferior. Looking at the other party's graceful figure that was faintly discernible under the red muslin, and the exposed snow-white chest, Ziyi subconsciously glanced at her own chest that was tightly wrapped. It didn't seem to be as perky as the other parties. Ma. Palace Lord Yi, don't bother. Yu Qianqiu shrugged his shoulders and said awkwardly. The allure beauty giggled and said, It's okay. I'm not afraid of trouble. She rubbed harder. Zi couldn't tell what was in her eyes. In short, it was very complicated. Zi, weren't you going to set off fireworks? Why did you come back? Yu Qianqiu asked with a bitter face. Liar. Zi didn't answer his question. She looked angry. Yu Qianqiu and the Allure Beauty were stunned at the same time. The latter asked Yu Qianqiu, what did you lie to her about? What's there to lie to? Yu Qianqiu rolled his eyes. His body suddenly emitted a scorching heat. After forcing the Allure Beauty away, he stood up and asked Zi, Zi, what's wrong with you? Who lied to you? Could it be those 4 guys? He looked her up and down. He thought, oh my god, did she lose her chastity? Who dared to force themselves on Nongzhu's daughter? No, to lie to her? They must be tired of living. It doesn't look like it. It's you, you big liar. Zi stood up and shouted. She herself didn't know what was going on, but from the moment she came in and saw Yu Qianqiu and that scantily clad woman acting very intimately together, an indescribable fire surged in her heart. She couldn't explain why. The Allure Beauty looked at Yu Qianqiu with a smile. Her expression seemed to say, I knew you were not a good person. Yu Qianqiu was stunned. Me? What did I lie to you about? He felt a little guilty. Did she know that I used her to make money? You can play the zither and compose music, but you never told me. If you aren't a liar, then what are you? Zi shouted. When the Allure Beauty heard this, the smile on her face froze. It was difficult for her to recover. Her mind was blank. Oh my god. Is this the legendary Zi who scared off 7 experts at the end of the Heavens test stage? Yu Qianqiu was also stunned. He asked suspiciously, that's it? If I don't tell you, then I'm a liar? Then why should I tell you? Zi paused. It seemed that she couldn't think of a better reason. However, the unknown fire in her hadn't subsided. She shouted in a far-fetched manner. If you don't tell me, then you're a liar. Fine, fine, fine. I'm a liar. Are you satisfied now? Yu Qianqiu was too lazy to argue with her. If he didn't finish playing with a stubborn person, then what was the difference between him and an idiot? He might as well admit that he was wrong. Who asked him to be so kind-hearted? Zi was no match for him. She was so angry that she couldn't say anything. Thus she pointed the spearhead at the Allure Beauty and asked, what is she doing here? Hey, this girl ate the wrong medicine today. 4 handsome men didn't make you happy? Yu Qianqiu looked at her from head to toe. From today onwards, I will follow Mr. and serve him. The Allure Beauty explained on her behalf. She finally understood that although Ziyi's cultivation was high, her mind wasn't mature yet. Yu Qianqiu was stunned. However, the Allure Beauty transmitted her voice to him. I'm quite well informed. With me by your side, you might be useful in the future. You still want someone to serve you? Zi glared at him and said, I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm going to sleep. Yu Qianqiu felt a headache coming on from these 2 women. He let out a roar and walked over to the bed. He threw himself onto the bed and closed his eyes. He didn't care about anything else and just let them be. Ziyi's chest was rising and falling rapidly. She followed the bed and shouted, Yu Qianqiu, you still haven't answered my question. Don't sleep. It was the first time she was ignored like this since she came from the South Sea. Even her master had never treated her like this. Let's talk tomorrow. I don't want to talk anymore today. Yu Qianqiu closed his eyes and waved his hand weakly. The Allure Beauty walked over with a smile. She bent down and picked up Yu Qianqiu's leg. Yu Qianqiu suddenly propped himself up. He saw that she was taking off his shoes. She really did look like she was serving someone. What was this woman trying to do? Yu Qianqiu was speechless. He just closed his eyes and let her do whatever she wanted. The Allure Beauty nodded to Zi with a faint smile. She then took off her little red shoes and went onto the bed with her bare feet. Under Ziyi's dumbfounded expression, she sat beside Yu Qianqiu. She picked up one of his legs and placed it on her thigh. Then she started to knead it bit by bit. And Yu Qianqiu moaned in comfort. He opened his eyes a little and quickly closed them again. His legs were full of elasticity and plump, which really made his imagination run wild. His heart was beating fast. Oh my god! How could I ask my master's wife to knead my legs? But I don't know anything. Zi was speechless. She stood aside and watched for a long time. Suddenly, she heard Yu Qianqiu snoring on the bed. His face had an unusually comfortable expression. She really wanted to go over and kick him. Seeing how virtuous the allure beauty was, she bit her red lips and resisted the urge. Then, she quietly retreated to the table and sat down. Late at night, the sound of fireworks outside stopped. The whole 100 Flowers Valley was unusually quiet. There was only the sound of Yu Qianqiu's even snoring in the room. Just like that, one of them kneaded his legs for the whole night, and the other sat aside and watched for the whole night. Ziyi's expression kept changing. No one knew what she was thinking. The next day, Yu Qianqiu, who was sleeping soundly, suddenly felt a sharp pain coming from his waist. He sat up with an ah sound. He saw the allure beauty looking at him with a smile. Obviously, she was the culprit. Ziyi, who was standing by the window, heard the scream and turned around. Her face had already recovered its calmness. Chapter 408. The temptress got off the bed first. The white and tender skin under the red gauze was really pleasing to the eyes. Ziyi's eyes also flashed a trace of amazement. Being so close to her, she could see the graceful figure of the temptress from top to bottom. It was an irresistible temptation for both men and women. Yu Qianqiu glanced at the delicate body that left his side. He inhaled the lingering fragrance of the temptress and smacked his lips secretly. What a pity! Last night, I wanted to close my eyes and enjoy this kind of intimate contact slowly. How could I fall asleep in a daze? It's so strange. He couldn't figure it out and got off the bed. He stretched himself and felt comfortable and refreshed. He found that he had never had such a good sleep. He couldn't help but look at the temptress in surprise again. It might have something to do with her massage. Otherwise, I wouldn't have fallen asleep in front of such a beauty. At least, I wouldn't have fallen asleep so quickly. The air in the new morning couldn't dilute the abnormal atmosphere in the room. Yu Qianqiu looked at Ziyi, who didn't speak. Ziyi looked at the temptress, who was playing coquettishly by the window. It seemed that Ziyi paid special attention to every move of the temptress. She seemed to be observing and learning carefully. Really, Yu Qianqiu was slightly stunned. As the saying went, it was easy to learn bad things but hard to learn good ones. This thing couldn't be learned casually. If Ziyi with the charm of the temptress returned to the purple bamboo forest in the South Sea, Nongzhu would definitely come to see him with a butcher's knife. Go down and eat something. Yu Qianqiu opened the door and walked out. The temptress touched her hair, nodded and smiled at Ziyi, and then followed him out. Ziyi followed her, looking at the temptress's graceful body swaying with charm, and then looking at herself. She slightly pouted and seemed to be a little disappointed. When the customers in the 100 Flower House saw the three people coming down from upstairs, almost all of their gazes were focused on the graceful enchantress. She walked down leisurely like a lotus, and her every frown and movement was infinitely charming, attracting everyone's gazes. Ziyi also looked at her with a trace of envy. Yu Qianqiu looked around and bitterly smiled. He envied everyone else for being able to look at the beauties without any restraints. However, he had many misgivings and did not dare to do so. He didn't know that God was playing a joke on him. He sent two beauties to his side, but he couldn't eat them. How depressing. What he didn't know was that everyone was envious of him. They envied him for being able to take on two people at once. One was the famous enchantress of 100 Charms, and the other was the rarely seen purple dress. Both were stunning beauties. Just as the three of them found a seat by the window and sat down, they saw footsteps outside. Many people were running towards the back of the mountain, and there were even people flying across the sky on swords. Yu Qianqiu looked around and frowned slightly. The back mountain was where the 100 Flower Palace was. Could something have happened to the 100 Flower Palace? Temptress, Yu Qian Mountain yelled. Ingli temptress, he to say. Ita to the temptress, and said. But. And. To. Damn it. I gave you face, but you don't want it. Yu Qianqiu was immediately infuriated. Coincidentally, another person ran over. Without saying a word, he kicked out and sent that person flying. Temptress and Ziyi looked at each other. Yu Qianqiu walked over and grabbed the person who was groaning in pain. He asked, Do you know me? The man slowly came back to his senses and was about to flip out, but after he saw clearly who it was, he repeatedly nodded in panic and said, I know, I know. Yu Qianqiu pulled his lapel and shouted in a deep voice. What are you panicking for? What happened? I don't know. I heard that Yan Bugui came back with his people. They are in a stalemate outside the 100 Flowers Valley. The Cultivation Alliance is gathering all the disciples in the 100 Flowers Valley. That person said with fear. Why did this guy come back? Yu Qianqiu frowned and let go of him. That person ran away. On a gentle slope in the back of the mountain, the 100 Flowers Palace was located. Outside was a sea of flowers. It was supposed to be a place where hundreds of flowers were blooming. But now, it was ruined by a group of people who didn't follow the rules. This was the second time. Dongfangchang, Ao looked serious. He held his spear and guarded outside the 100 Flowers Palace. The Cultivation Alliance didn't expect that Yan Bugui would take his people to the 100 Flowers Valley when the war had already begun. This was a terrible thing. Most of the masters of the Cultivation Alliance had been transferred away. The rest were mostly second-rate masters of the various sections. Dongfangchang, Ao, and Qiu were left to take charge of the affairs of the righteous and demon sects. Their cultivations were higher. On Yan Bugui's side, it was basically the same group of people as last time. There were more than 50 people, and all of them were above the tribulation passing stage. What was more terrifying was that there were 2 masters at the end of the tribulation passing stage. Although the Cultivation Alliance had a lot of people, they were no match for the other side. Although there were some masters in the 100 Flowers Palace, they were originally Yan Bugui's subordinates. It was good that they didn't go with him. How many people dared to attack him? At this time, Qiu Yuan was blocking in front of Yan Bugui and begging. Yan Bugui probably gave him some face. Otherwise he would have rushed in. Now no one could stop him. Dongfangchang, Ao looked around with a cold face. He felt that something was missing. Xionghui behind him asked nervously. Elder Dongfang, doesn't Yu Qianqiu still have a group of people under him? Do you want me to call them over? That's right. Yu Qianqiu himself was an expert. Not to mention, Zi and 100 Charms Enchantress were by his side. Although those loose cultivators were useless, it was always better to have more people. There was also a tribulation passing stage among them, right? Dongfangchang, Ao's eyes lit up. No wonder he felt that something was missing. He nodded and allowed Xionghui to leave. At this time he couldn't help but feel a little emotional. That little disciple of his that he wouldn't even look at in the eye had become quite important now. In fact, Xionghui's trip was in vain. On a mountain not far from here, behind a few big trees, Yu Qianqiu and the 2 girls were watching the situation. Yu Qianqiu frowned deeply. Normally, he did not want to interfere in this matter because Yan Bugui had many experts under him. Even if he called out the special forces, even if they won, the special forces would inevitably suffer heavy losses. After all, he had used his own spirit stones to build them up. Unless the benefits outweighed the disadvantages, it was better not to use them. But I also promised Ma Jiugu to protect Bai Hua Fairy and her daughter, so I'll just wait and see. If the mother and daughter are fine, I'll just stay put. I don't care about anything else. Qiu Yuan, get out of the way. Don't force me to do it, Yan Bugui shouted. It seems like his patience was running out. Qiu Yuan smiled bitterly and said, Eldest senior brother, why are you doing this? Why do you have to involve the mother and daughter in your matters? Besides, they are not willing to go with you. Could it be that you want to use force against them? Whether they want to or not, I'll have to ask them first. This is my family's business. Get out of my way. Eldest brother, why are you so unwise? Are you really so sure that you will win? What if you fail? Why do you want them to follow you and risk the world's wrath? Who would dare to protect them? Qiu Yuan tried his best to persuade him. The meaning behind his words was very clear. The mother and daughter pair are very safe here. It wouldn't be too late to take them away after you win. Yan Bugui coldly laughed. I'm afraid that if you lose, the mother and daughter pair will become your hostages. You're trying so hard to stop us husband and wife from seeing each other. Have you already put them under house arrest? The last part of his sentence was very serious. So this was the reason why he tried so hard to take Bai Hua Fairy and her daughter away. Qiu Wuyuan was a bit surprised. Eldest brother, what do you mean by that? Even if the entire Chinese cultivation world loses to you, who from the righteous and evil path would dare to take the mother and daughter pair as hostages? Not only our 10,000 demons wouldn't agree, even Fuxian Island wouldn't agree. That was then, this is now, in a moment of life and death, who would care about the mother and daughter pair? Yan Bugui spoke in a low voice. Eldest brother, what you're saying, could it be that you don't even trust Shifu? Could it be that Shifu would harm his own granddaughter? How could Guanding Hai of Fuxian Island easily take his granddaughter as a hostage? Qiu Wuyuan shook his head and smiled bitterly. Yan Bugui's expression was uncertain. They'll be the safest if they follow me. As long as we're alive, they'll be safe. Otherwise, I won't be at ease no matter who has them. Qiu Wuyuan, seeing that we're fellow disciples, I've already done my best. Today, no matter what, I'll take them away with me. Don't force me to attack you, get out of my way. Without the decree of Shifu and Sect Master, I can't back down. Qiu Wuyuan slowly retreated. He knew that it was useless to continue persuading him. It seemed like he was ready to fight to the death. Yan Bugui's expression slowly turned ferocious. The conversation below was clearly heard by the three people behind the tree on the hilltop. Ziyi did not feel anything, but the Allure Demon's expression when she looked at Yan Bugui was a little moved. For a woman to be able to meet such a man, it was the dream of most women. She was also a woman who had such a dream. Yu Qianqiu rubbed his chin in thought. He didn't expect Yan Bugui to be such a family-oriented person. For his wife and daughter, he risked his life to enter the hinterland of China's cultivation world twice. Ma Jugu's choice back then was not wrong. It seemed like Bai Hua Fairy and her daughter wouldn't be in any danger even if they left with him. The most important thing now was whether they were willing to go with him. If they were willing, that would be great, but if they weren't, conflict would be unavoidable. But they probably wouldn't go with him. Most women cared about their family, and Bai Hua Fairy was also a woman. How could she go against Fuxian Island, her family? That might not be the case. The battle between family and love was never set in stone. Young women were easily impulsive, while men were easily hesitant. Big men were often the opposite. At that time, men were the most likely to lose their rationality. They might even abandon their country for a smile. That's why in the past life, there was a saying that husband and wife were birds in the same forest. He hoped that his guess was wrong. That way he wouldn't have to work so hard. While Yu Qianqiu was thinking, his eyes suddenly lit up. From the Baihua Palace, Yan Zixiao accompanied a dignified, elegant, and exceptionally beautiful woman. The woman was so beautiful that people didn't dare to look at her directly. Her beauty was enough to cause the downfall of a city. Needless to say, this woman must be Bai Hua Fairy without a doubt. Yu Qianqiu sighed to himself. Women with the title of fairy in the cultivation world really couldn't be compared to ordinary beauties. The Jade Flower Fairy from before was like this, and now Bai Hua Fairy is also like this. What a pity. All the good cabbages are taken by pigs. Chapter 409. Seeing Bai Hua Fairy leisurely walking towards them, as well as Yan Zixia next to her, Yan Wuchen excitedly walked forward calling out, "Madam Zixia, stop." Dong Fengchang Ao shouted and pointed the spear in his hand at Yan Wuchen, stopping him a few meters away. Dong Fengchang Ao, you dare to stop my family from reuniting. Today I will take your head to vent my anger. Yan Wuchen shouted. A green light shot out from his inventory bag. With a xiao sound, it shot towards Dong Fengchang Ao like lightning. Dong Fengchang Ao's expression darkened, quickly raised his spear with both hands, but as soon as the tip of the spear was covered in golden light, a black light shot out even faster. With a pung sound, it knocked the green light away. One black and one green quickly returned. Dong Fengchang Ao held his spear to protect himself, glancing to his side, only to see a 1-meter-long crescent-shaped black magic weapon floating in front of Qiu Wuyuan, slowly rotating in the air. The curved blade had a black glow, spirit energy and killing intent coexisting. It was clearly a top-notch magic weapon. Yan Wugui caught the emerald flying sword, staring at the crescent-shaped magic weapon in front of Qiu Wuyuan, shouting in shock. Black Moon Pagoda! Qiu Wuyuan, how did it end up in your hands? When everyone saw Qiu Wuyuan's magic weapon, they all felt it was a bit strange, but when they heard Yan Wugui's words, they were also shocked. A few hundred years ago, when the sect leader of 10,000 demons, Yan Wuchun, dominated the world, he had a high-tier magic weapon that struck fear into the hearts of the cultivators. Wasn't it called the Black Moon Pagoda? That was a peerless weapon at that time. Countless cultivators died under Yan Wuchun's Black Moon Pagoda. Ever since the leader of 10,000 demons retired, no one in the cultivation world has seen it again. Who would have thought that it would appear in Qiu Wuyuan's hands today? It was the first time for Dongfangchang, Ao, to see any of the Chinese cultivators present. Dongfangchang Ao looked at Qiu Wuyuan in surprise. Why did Yan Wuchun give him his personal treasure? Yan Bugui's expression was a little sluggish. Behind him, the old man in embroidered robes and the old man in linen robes also looked at each other. Although they were foreign cultivators, they had also heard of the fearsome name of the Black Moon Pagoda. Black Moon Pagoda? What kind of treasure is it? Yu Qianqiu looked at the gadget and turned to look at the enchantress of 100 charms. He was not very experienced and had never heard of such a thing. The Allure Beauty understood what he meant. Her expression turned solemn as she transmitted her voice. The Black Moon Pagoda is said to be the most lethal weapon of the Devil Dao. Its exact origin is unknown, but it seems that Yan Wuchun's father obtained it by chance. After it fell into Yan Wuchun's hands, it became infamous in the cultivation world. Back then, there was a saying, "Under the pagoda, all are dead souls." It was said that no one who fought with Yan Wuchun could survive under his Black Moon Pagoda. This shows how powerful this treasure is. Tisk tsk. What a great treasure. Yu Qianqiu looked at Qiu Wuyuan again. He couldn't help but think of the day when Yan Wuchun didn't give him any face and slapped Qiu Wuyuan in front of everyone. At that time, Qiu Wuyuan was as obedient as a child. Who would have thought that after suffering in front of everyone he would receive such a great benefit? He then looked at the mother and daughter. Yan Zixia was biting her lips, staring at her father without saying a word. Bai Hua Fairy was even more indifferent as she looked at the distance. She didn't say a word. No one knew what she was thinking behind her calm face. This family is a bit interesting. They even dragged me into this. What the hell? Yu Qianqiu shook his head and smiled bitterly. Eldest brother, you didn't see wrong. This is Master's personal treasure, the Black Moon Pagoda. Qiu Wuyuan bowed sincerely towards the direction of the 10,000 demons. Wuyuan was adopted by Master when I was young. He personally taught me and treated me like his own son. I have always treated Master as a strict father. However, Wuyuan's talent is limited. Master has always favored me. First, he gave me the 4 generals of the demon family. Then he gave me his personal treasure, the Black Moon Pagoda. Qiu Wuyuan cannot repay Master's kindness even if he dies 10,000 times. Shut up. Yan Bugui shouted. His face was twisted. The Yan family's descendants have not died yet. This Black Moon Pagoda is not the treasure of the 10,000 demons. It is our Yan family's inherited treasure. How can we give it to an outsider? Give it back. He was really asking for it without any hesitation. Qiu Wuyuan shook his head. Eldest brother, Master already knew that you would say something like this. He told me to pass on a message to you when I see you again. Hearing that his father had something to tell him, Yan Bugui's eyes flickered. What message? This is what Master said. Eldest senior brother, listen carefully. Qiu Wuyuan smiled bitterly. He said slowly. I originally had a son and a foster son. My son betrayed the 10,000 demons. He abandoned the Yan family's painstaking efforts and gave the 4 generals of the demon family to my foster son. My son betrayed the cultivation world of Wuxia and gave the Yan family's inherited treasure to my foster son. Unfilial son, are you ashamed? Since you have the ability to betray us again and again, you should have the ability to fight for your own things. The Yan family's things do not belong to you. Don't ask for it shamelessly. Wuyuan, if he dares to ask for it from you, tell him everything I said. Let's see if he can face the ancestors of the Yan family. Yan Bugui felt like he was struck by lightning. He looked at Qiu Wuyuan with a pale face. He knew that Qiu Wuyuan would not lie in front of everyone. These words were undoubtedly from his father. Qiu Wuyuan said helplessly, Eldest brother, these are Master's original words. I didn't change a single word. Palace Master Yan, don't lose your composure. With Palace Master Yan's spirit, the 10,000 demons can only restrain you. How can you fulfill your ambitions? When you control the entire cultivation world of Wuxia in the future, who would dare to say a word against you? The old man in brocade robe chuckled. He looked at the old man in linen robe beside him. This time, Yanbu Gui returned to the 100 Flowers Valley. Although it was because he missed his wife and daughter, there were two people behind it. The headquarters of the Cultivation Alliance was empty. If they took the opportunity to launch a sneak attack, even if they could not cause great losses to the cultivation world of Wuxia, they could still greatly damage their morale and bring invisible benefits to the battle ahead. Otherwise, who would have nothing better to do and come all the way here to fight for his wife? They were not really his subordinates. The two of them looked at the increasing number of cultivators from Wuxia and smiled. One disagreement would be the beginning of a massacre. The more casualties they caused, the more they could damage the morale of the Cultivation Alliance, and the more advantageous it would be for the battle ahead. Shut up! Qiu Wuyuan shouted at the old man in brocade robe. My eldest brother's current situation was instigated by you too. You have the ambition of wolves and evil intentions. How dare you speak so arrogantly here? The old man in brocade robe raised his eyebrows and chuckled. I'm not your eldest brother. If you talk too much, you might lose the Black Moon Pagoda and your head. I'll give face to Palace Master Yan for now. I hope you won't say anything to anger me again. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. How dare you? Dongfangchang, Ao shouted, holding his spear in one hand and standing next to Qiu Wuyuan. The two of them exchanged glances. Although they've been enemies for many years, they have a tacit understanding. They've already given up on the righteous and demonic paths, and are ready to fight side by side. Since you don't know what's good for you, then I won't be polite, the old man in brocade robe smirked. His hands came out from behind his back. He finally had an excuse to act. Chang Ao Wuyuan, stand down. A slightly dignified female voice was heard. Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan turned around, only to see the beautiful Bai Hua fairy was already walking towards them. The two of them were a bit surprised, exchanged glances but didn't say anything. They only slightly bowed and stood on her left and right, on high alert to prevent any mishaps. Bai Hua fairy coldly stared at the old man in brocade robe, her tone frigid. Who are you daring to provoke my Bai Hua palace? Are you trying to bully us mother and daughter, because our Bai Hua palace doesn't have a man to lead it? Her man is right in front of her, yet she still dares to say such words. Yu Qianqiu, who was hiding in the shadows, shook his head. Not only is this woman beautiful, but she's also very smart. No wonder Bai Hua palace isn't led by Yanbu Gui, but by her. Her words are so sharp that they cut straight to the heart. Fuck. You want me to protect her? I think it's more like she's protecting me. Ma Jiugu is going in the opposite direction. Sure enough, when the old man saw Bai Hua fairy's beauty, his eyes filled with admiration, was stunned speechless. He immediately turned around to look at the pale-faced Yanbu Gui. This woman's words are trying to drive a wedge between them. If I argue with her, Yanbu Gui might turn against me. Although I'm not afraid of turning against him, now's not the time to do so. I still need his cooperation. The brocade-robed old man remembered that man who and his fellow brothers must have taken some kind of wrong medicine. They're all dead set on following the Yen father and son. His expression couldn't help but twitch a bit. As he retreated, he said, Bai Hua fairy truly lives up to her name. Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan exchanged glances. Even their combined efforts couldn't scare them away. But they were all taken care of by Bai Hua fairy with just a few words. People really can't be compared to each other. Bai Hua fairy's beautiful eyes looked around, scowling. My 100 Flowers Valley used to be a peaceful place, but now it's a mess. This palace doesn't welcome you. Get out of 100 Flowers Valley immediately. Saying so, she coldly turned around and walked away. Mu Shui, listen to me. Yanbu Gui raised his hand and shouted. Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan immediately blocked his way. Qiu Wuyuan shook his head. Eldest brother, sister-in-law has made it very clear, you should go back. Mu Shui. Yu Qianqiu muttered. then turned around to look at the 100 Charms beauty. The latter smiled and sent her voice. Bai Hua Fairy's real name is Guanmu Shui. Yu Qianqiu nodded in understanding. The 100 Charms beauty sent her voice again. Now you know the benefits of having me by your side. Yu Qianqiu rolled his eyes. Who the hell knows what you're thinking? Hearing that, Bai Hua Fairy stopped and turned around to look at Yan Bugui. Ever since they came out, this was the first time she looked at him directly. Her face was expressionless. Listen to you? Listen to what you say? You've lied to me for so many years. Don't tell me you think it's not enough and want to keep lying? Am I, Guanmu Shui, so easy to bully in your eyes? Forget it. I don't want to talk about the past anymore. I'm tired, and I don't want to hear anymore. If you still care about the past, then return peace to my 100 Flower Valley and leave with your people. After saying that, he turned around again. Chapter 410. Mu Shui. Do you still remember the time before Baihua Palace was established, when we had no one to rely on? Yan Bugui loudly shouted. Hearing that, Baihua Fairy stopped again, but this time, she didn't turn around. Seeing that she had stopped, Yan Bugui said in a loud and emotional voice, Back then, it wasn't easy for you and I to be together, and we faced so much resistance. Although we were ridiculed and scolded, we still persevered. Before Baihua Palace was established, did the 10,000 demons or Fuxian Island care for us? No. No one cared if we lived or died. It wasn't until you and I worked so hard to establish this Baihua Palace that we managed to gain a foothold in the cultivation world. How could outsiders understand the hardships we went through? Baihua Fairy didn't move, she didn't leave, nor did she turn around. Perhaps she was also thinking about the hard times back then. Dongfang Chang'eo and Qiu Wuyuan exchanged glances. Both of them knew about it. Back then, Fuxian Island and 10,000 demons were pressured by both the righteous and evil path. Even their sect masters, Guanding Hai and Yan Wuchun, had to take the blame and step down, so who would care about them when they were in a fit of anger? For a very long time, they really didn't lend a helping hand to the two of them, leaving them to fend for themselves. It wasn't until Baihua Palace became the trading hub of China's cultivation world that the two great sects secretly re-established their relationship with it. Then again, if the two of them didn't have the backing of the number one sect in the righteous and evil path, it would have been even more difficult for them to establish their own sects in the cultivation world. Back then, I told you that one day, I won't let anyone look down on you anymore. Perhaps you think it was only in the heat of the moment that I uttered those words. But I took it as a vow, and I've always been fighting for it. Thus, I've been working hard in secret for 100 years, but who knew that it would be destroyed by that fellow Yu Qianqiu? Otherwise, the vow I made would just be around the corner. Hearing him mention Yu Qianqiu, Zi looked at Yu Qianqiu curiously. She had never heard of this. She didn't know what Yu Qianqiu had done to destroy the plan that Yu Qianqiu had painstakingly worked on for 100 years. She saw Yu Qianqiu's mouth split open, looking like he was in great pain as he smiled at her. His smile was very ugly. On the other side, the enchantress of 100 Charms was silently poking his waist with a finger. Yen, why are you dragging me into the matter between you and your wife? Your wife and I didn't cheat on you. Yu Qianqiu gritted his teeth and endured the pain. The enchantress of 100 Charms had a bad habit. She liked to poke people with her fingers at the slightest provocation. One day, he would let her have a taste of her pain. Everything I've done is for you. Don't tell me I'm not worthy of your forgiveness? Yan Bugui extended his hand and said, Mu Shui, come with me. If it was really for me, you should have told me earlier. You wouldn't have kept it a secret for 100 years. Baihua Fairy didn't turn around and continued walking. Don't you know me? I've given up everything to be with you. I've never disagreed with any of your decisions. After I found out, I would only support you and not drag you down. Yet you kept it a secret from me. Clearly, you've always been on guard against me. I didn't want to make you worry. I didn't want you to work too hard. Yan Bugui loudly explained. We both understand each other. Whether or not it's an excuse, you should understand. There's no need to explain anything else. Just take your people and leave. I don't want to see you again. Baihua Fairy still didn't turn around. Yan Zixiao followed on the side, silently obeying her. Occasionally, she would look back. On one side was her father, and on the other side was her mother. What else could she do? The brocade-robed old man and the linen-robed old man exchanged glances and nodded. The former sent his voice to Yen Bugui. Palace Master Yen, your madam has already made up her mind. I think it would be better if we forcefully kidnap the mother and daughter back to Everlasting Island. The daughter is mother's flesh and blood. It would be better if the young palace master comes out to persuade them. Otherwise, they'll eventually become hostages in the hands of the Cultivation Alliance. At that point, we'll be stuck. Yen Bugui sent his voice back. That's not a good idea. She has a strong personality. I'm afraid that she'll do something that she won't be able to regret. Palace Master Yen, if you can't make a decision, you have to make a decision quickly. How about this? As long as you agree, my junior brother and I will act together to guarantee that we'll kidnap the mother and daughter, not giving them a chance to harm themselves. What do you think? The brocade-robed old man continued to persuade him. Seeing that Bai Hua Fairy had already entered the palace gate, Yen Bugui gritted his teeth and sent his voice back. Then I'll have to trouble Senior Chang and Senior Feng to ensure their safety. The brocade-robed old man's face lit up, nodded to the linen-robed old man and suddenly shouted, "Kill!" As soon as the order was given, the two old men behind Yen Bugui had already disappeared. Dongfeng Chang, Ao and Chiu Wuyuan were both shocked and shouted at the same time. Not good. The two of them quickly flew back into Baihua Palace, but compared to a Tribulation Realm late-stage cultivator's teleportation, their speed was too slow. Baihua Fairy probably didn't think that Yen Bugui would order people to use force on her. Hearing the commotion behind her, before she could even react, the acupuncture point on her back was instantly struck. A powerful surge of true essence rushed into her body, cutting off any chance of resistance. Yen Zixia was also the same. Yu Qianqiu, who was hiding in the shadows, thought that Yen Bugui was deeply in love with his wife and wouldn't use force, but he didn't expect this to be the case. He didn't expect the foreign cultivators to instigate Yen Bugui. The Baihua Palace disciples guarding the palace gate were shocked and immediately attacked the two old men with their flying swords. But with their cultivation, this kind of action is nothing but child's play for a Tribulation Realm late-stage cultivator. The two of them unleashed a powerful wave of true qi to knock the flying swords away. Several disciples screamed in pain, spat out blood as they were sent flying and died on the spot. Baihua Fairy and Yen Zixia's shoulders were being held down. They couldn't even move their fingers. Dongfeng Chang Ao and Chiu Wuyuan, who just arrived, saw that the mother and daughter were being restrained by the two Tribulation Realm late-stage cultivators, so they didn't dare to act rashly. The brocade-robed old man smiled at the two of them. I know you two are the ones in charge here. Tell your people to stop, otherwise these two beauties are going to suffer. Screams and screams could be heard outside. The group of foreign cultivators had already started a massacre. The Cultivation Alliance's members who stayed behind were all mixed in cultivation, so how could they be a match for them? They were all killed in just a few moves. But facing a foreign enemy, their blood was roused and they all charged forward without fear of death. Even if they were afraid of death, there was no way to escape. If they ran away from this battle, there would probably be no place for them in the world. Blood was boiling everywhere. In the blink of an eye, many people had already given up their lives. Such a heroic scene caused Dongfeng Chang, Ao and Chiu Wuyuan to look at each other, then quickly made the decision to retreat. The brocade-robed old man used the mother and daughter to threaten them, but it didn't work at all. Not only did the two of them not tell the Cultivation Alliance to stop, they even gave up on the safety of Baihua Fairy and Yen Zixia. Their anger turned into endless killing intent, as they returned to the battlefield with all their might. Ah! Dongfeng Chang, Ao shouted angrily as he thrust his spear forward. Below, a foreign Tribulation Realm early-stage cultivator, who had just used a flying sword to take the lives of two people, sneered and was about to summon his sword to kill again. Suddenly, he heard a loud roar from the sky. When he looked up, a golden spear had directly knocked away his flying sword, and was heading towards him. He was scared out of his wits and hurriedly tried to escape. But how could Dongfeng Chang Ao let him go? Relying on his superior speed, he raised his spear and cut him in half, sending his head flying. Dongfeng Chang Ao didn't stop. He turned around with his spear and looked for another person to fight. On the other side, Qiu Wuyuan was even more ferocious than Dongfang Chang'ao. The Black Moon Pagoda danced around his body like a ghost, following him wherever he went. Every time he attacked, he would destroy the opponent's magic tools or magic treasures. Then, the Black Moon Pagoda moved like a phantom, reaping the opponent's life with lightning speed. In the blink of an eye, Qiu Wuyuan had taken the lives of 3 tribulation passing stage cultivators. The Black Moon Pagoda was indeed the most ferocious weapon of the diabolism. It was indeed powerful. With such power, when the foreign tribulation passing stage cultivators saw Qiu Wuyuan rushing towards them with the Black Moon Pagoda, they quickly dodged it. One of them was holding the Golden Origin Spear, while the other was carrying the Black Moon Pagoda. They fought fiercely and were stained with blood. They killed more than 10 people in a row, which greatly boosted the morale of their side. The people of the Cultivation Alliance immediately fought back with all their might. Although they knew that they were going to die, their morale was high. They only wanted to entangle the other foreign cultivators and wait for Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan to come and avenge them. This scene caused Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan's eyes to turn red. They roared in anger and grief. The golden light and the black shadow would not stop until one of them was dead. The old man was stunned by this sudden change. He knew that these two were the strongest among the people on the other side, and seeing how respectful they were towards Bai Hua Fairy, he decided to use the lives of Bai Hua Fairy and her daughter to threaten them. But who would have thought that at this crucial moment, they wouldn't even care about their threats? The two of them tacitly turned around and killed without any hesitation, causing so many people on their side to run away. He really didn't expect the two of them to be so strong. The tribulation passing stage cultivators he brought with him were all killed without being able to fight back. From this, it could be seen that the two of them were indeed people sent by the number 1 sex of the righteous and diabolism. They were not simple. Yan Bugui stood alone outside the battlefield, watching his junior brother fight with his life on the line, as well as a group of Chinese cultivators fighting angrily. He suddenly felt his hands and feet go numb. He had always thought that all Chinese cultivators were selfish, and that the so-called righteousness was nothing but a joke. He never thought that he would see such a scene. He even doubted that with the help of a group of foreign cultivators, could he really unify the entire Chinese cultivation world. He was originally full of confidence, but now his willpower was shaken. Looking at the restrained Bai Hua Fairy and Yan Zixia, he saw that the two of them had both turned away from the cruel battlefield. Their eyes filled with grief and indignation, staring at him. Yan Zixia's eyes were filled with tears. The hatred in her eyes made him shudder. Yan Bugui had never seen his daughter look at him like that before. The brocade-robed old man was originally controlling Bai Hua Fairy, but right now his face was pale as he put his hand on Yan Zixia's shoulder and spoke in a low voice. "Junior brother, leave this to me. You go kill those two for me." Chapter 411. Zi had never seen such a scene before. She didn't know what righteousness was, but she felt an inexplicable sadness that she had never felt before. The temptress lost all her charm at this moment, and her body was trembling uncontrollably. She decided to join the battle, but just as she took a step forward, her arm was grabbed by Yu Qianqiu. Although she told Qiu Wuyuan that the war in the cultivation world had nothing to do with her, she actually believed that by staying by Yu Qianqiu's side, she would be able to better use his hidden strength. When she glanced at him, she saw that he was looking down expressionlessly, unbelievably calm. She instantly felt a chill in her heart. She didn't expect him to just stand by and watch. "Just stand by and watch, don't grab me." The temptress's face was as cold as frost. "Why are you so agitated?" Yu Qianqiu didn't have the respect a disciple had for his mistress. He snorted coldly and said, "What a woman's view. No wonder the illusion palace was destroyed in your hands. Those who don't plan for the world can't plan for a moment, and those who don't plan for the overall situation can't plan for a region. So what if some people die? Don't tell me that you, the master of a palace, don't know the principle of mercy not leading an army? I'm here. Why are you panicking?" Zi didn't know so many principles, but she looked at the temptress in deep thought. In fact, she didn't know what to do in such a situation. She felt that Yu Qianqiu was right to say such nice words. The temptress was stunned. She didn't expect that Yu Qianqiu would dare to use the manly way on her. But strangely, she felt that it was very useful. She looked at her arm that was being grabbed by him, and the frost on her face disappeared. She thought, as long as you don't just stand by and watch. Yu Qianqiu had been paying attention to what was happening below. When he saw that the old man in linen had handed over control of Yan Zixia to the old man in embroidered robes, he quickly glanced at Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan. His eyes narrowed and he pointed at the old man in linen robes. Z, keep an eye on him. If he dares to make a move, stop him immediately and kill him without mercy. Z nodded heavily and said, N. Then, a piece of purple-black bamboo appeared in her hand. Hearing this, the enchantress of 100 Charm immediately felt much more at ease. Sure enough, as soon as the old man in linen handed over the man, he shot towards Qiu Wuyuan. Ze teleported and disappeared almost at the same time. Qiu Wuyuan, who was in the midst of fighting, was shocked when he heard the sound of something flying towards him. He knew that a top-notch expert had arrived. Taking the opportunity to look back, he felt that something was wrong. There was a world of difference between an expert in the final phase of the tribulation stage and a cultivator in the middle phase of the tribulation stage. Although he had the Black Moon Pagoda, he was not arrogant enough to fight against an expert in the final phase of the tribulation stage. On the other side, Dongfang Chang, Ao also shouted a warning, "Be careful, Qiu Wuyuan." He also brandished his spear and rushed over to lend a hand. Otherwise, if Qiu Wuyuan was defeated, he would not be able to save Qiu Wuyuan alone. However, his opponent also understood that once the old man in linen robes dealt with Qiu Wuyuan, his next target would definitely be Dongfang Chang Ao. Immediately, 3 foreign cultivators rushed over and formed a triangle to hold Dongfang Chang Ao back. They did not aim to defeat him, they just needed to hold him back. Before the old man in linen robes arrived, a silver light had already left his hand and shot towards Qiu Wuyuan with a strong current of air. Its speed and power were hard to predict, but Qiu Wuyuan was also being held back and could not get away. His eyes were filled with grief and indignation, and he was about to make his last attack. Elder Qiu, run! A group of weak Wuxia cultivators rushed over in a frenzy, attacking the foreign cultivators who were trapping Qiu Wuyuan without any regard for their lives. There were even several cultivators who soared into the sky, wanting to risk their lives to block the old man in linen robes. However, they were struck by a casual palm strike from the old man, and the tyrannical force immediately smashed their flesh and blood into pieces. None of them were spared. Yen Bugui, who was outside, saw his junior brother's reaction and smacked his lips with difficulty. After all, they had been brothers for many years and could not be thrown away so easily. However, since things had already come to this, there was no turning back. Fight! Suddenly, a beautiful woman's shout was heard. A black shadow shot over and directly hit the silver light released by the old man in linen robes away, immediately saving Qiu Wuyuan from danger. Zi appeared out of thin air and recalled the purplish-black bamboo. She shouted again, "Fight!" The black shadow shot towards the old man in linen robes again. A strong current of air broke through the air, and the old man was shocked. He shook his arms and summoned the silver light. Together, they soared into the sky and barely avoided the black shadow. When Qiu Wuyuan saw the person who saved him, he instantly became spirited and said, "Thank you, Miss Yi." In fact, he was not the only one who felt that way. Everyone else was also spirited. When they were in danger, a strong help suddenly came. This kind of feeling was hard to understand, even if it was just a ray of hope. Moreover, everyone knew that Ziyi had been by Yu Qianqiu's side for a long time. Since she was here, that guy should be here soon. The guy who was not very famous but could control 1,000 swords appeared in everyone's mind. That guy was an expert in fighting. Moreover, he had more than 600 rogue cultivators under him. Even if they were useless, they could still be of some use. When they thought of more than 600 people coming, everyone couldn't help but look forward to it. Ziyi raised her head and looked at the sky, then quickly looked at Qiu Wuyuan, who was trapped. No one knew what she was thinking, but she shot out the rod in her hand with a swoosh sound. The strong wind blew, and the people below were no match for her. They were all scared out of their wits. However, there was still one person who couldn't escape as fast as the rod. Because he was the target, he immediately let out a scream. After smashing one of the people who trapped Qiu Wuyuan to death, the rod shot back and accompanied Ziyi to the sky. A linen robe and Ziyi quickly fought in the sky. From time to time, the sound of fight, fight, fight could be heard. It seemed that Ziyi's great skill of shifting positions was indeed useful. It was almost suppressing the old man in linen robes. The old man was in danger and was suffering unspeakably. Only then did he realize that his opponent's skills were not just a little higher than his. Especially that strange body movement. It was almost impossible to defend against it. What a joke, although Ziyi didn't know much about the ways of the world, but in terms of cultivation, Nongzhu spared no effort in teaching her. After all, they were master and disciple in name, but in reality, Ziyi was his daughter. When he couldn't find a suitable opponent for his daughter, he would personally go and spar with her. Think about it, a person who could fight against an ascended realm middle stage cultivator, for a long time would naturally be able to fight against a tribulation passing stage cultivator with ease. The old man in linen robes who was restraining by Hua Fairy and Yan Zixia stared at the sky with a serious expression, then suddenly shouted, Ziyi, my brother and I have no grudge against you. Why aren't you staying in your southern sea purple bamboo forest? Why are you here to fight against us? Ziyi was in the middle of the fight, so she didn't have time to answer him. Her only reply was fight, fight, fight. Beauty of 100 Charms stared at the fight in the sky, thinking about why she purposely provoked her last night. Now that she thought about it, she couldn't help but feel a little scared. This Ziyi looks like she doesn't know much about the ways of the world. She didn't expect her to be so strong. Seems like it's better not to provoke her, otherwise, if she gets angry, no one will be able to protect her. Yu Qianqiu saw that Ziyi had the upper hand and wouldn't be in danger, so he breathed a sigh of relief. His gaze turned back to the battlefield where the number of casualties was increasing, silently calculating. The old man in linen robes wouldn't let go of the mother and daughter easily. The old man in linen robes was being restrained by Ziyi, and the two late-stage tribulation passing stage cultivators couldn't attack, so their threat was greatly reduced. It's time for me to act. Otherwise, if Ziyi shows up and I don't show up, I won't be able to explain myself to everyone. Yu Qianqiu silently counted the remaining 30-plus cultivators. It seems like Dongfangchang Ao and Qiu Wuyuan had used up too much of their energy, so they were starting to show signs of exhaustion. His gaze became determined, and a ball of blue fire appeared in his hand. The Allure Beauty's pupils shrank, not knowing what he was going to do, but the blue fire gradually condensed into a fireball in his palm, and Yu Qianqiu suddenly threw the blue fireball directly into the sky. A ray of blue light exploded below the battle between Ziyi and the old man in linen robes, and the high temperature made the two of them a little uncomfortable. The sudden abnormal scene made the old man in linen robes raise his head to look, and many people also took the opportunity to look, only to see the words "Prepare for battle, gather and surround them," condensed in the blue fire in the sky. These words didn't appear for long, and gradually disappeared in the sky. However, the meaning of these words was thought-provoking. Prepare for battle, gather and surround them, appeared at this time. Was there even a need to think? The only thing everyone was worried about was not knowing whether it was a friend or a foe. It's Yu Qianqiu's blue fire. Someone shouted from below, and the Cultivation Alliance immediately shouted, "Help is here, our help is here." The group of foreign cultivators felt a little guilty, and while fighting, they were distracted from time to time, not knowing what kind of powerful help made their opponents so happy. The old man in linen robes in the sky didn't dare to be distracted to deal with Ziyi, but suddenly found that a large number of people in black suddenly appeared from all directions, like a swarm of locusts. He didn't know where they came from, but there were at least 500 or 600 people, and all of them were flying quickly in the sky. Based on this alone, it could be concluded that these people in black all had the cultivation of the tribulation stage. Otherwise, even a nascent soul late-stage cultivator couldn't fly so fast in the sky. 500 or 600 tribulation stage cultivators. There were so many hidden masters in the 100 Flowers Valley. This was bad. When the old man in linen robes realized this, he was shocked, and hurriedly sent a voice transmission to the old man in linen robes below. "Senior brother, be careful." The voice transmission stopped abruptly, and the old man in linen robes felt a great pain in his back, thinking that it was over. Looking down, he saw a black shadow flying out from his chest where his heart was. At the moment when he was distracted, his defense was a bit lax, and Zi finally found a chance to kill him. The old man in linen robes suddenly looked up to the sky, saw everything and immediately shouted, "Zi, bitch, you dare!" Bai Hua Fairy and Yan Zixia were suddenly gripped by the strength of his hand. They felt like their shoulders were about to be crushed, but they couldn't say anything. Fight! Zi was also ruthless, hitting the opponent's vital point in one strike. Seeing the opponent falling down, she still wasn't willing to give up, so she called back the bamboo with a strong gust of wind, directly smashing the head of the half-dead person into nothingness. Sure enough, she carried out Yu Qianqiu's kill without mercy to the end. Chapter 412. The purplish-black bamboo shook off the dirt on its body in the air, then flew back to Ziyi's hand. The old man in embroidered robes bellowed, "Slut!" Ziyi scoffed. Without needing anyone to call her, she directly landed in front of him, holding the bamboo in her hand, her face cold as she slowly approached. It seems like she hasn't had enough yet. Yu Qianqiu silently felt bad. This little girl is a one-track mind. She only worships old man Bai's ruthlessness, so she doesn't care about the lives of Bai Hua Fairy and her daughter. So he hurriedly told 100 Charms Enchantress, "Send your voice to her, tell her not to act rashly, be careful that they don't hurt the mother and daughter." 100 Charms Beauty understood the severity of the situation and quickly sent her voice. Zi glanced over, then stayed in front of the old man without moving. Seeing his junior brother die, the old man originally wanted to leave the mother and daughter behind to take revenge, but seeing Zi coming over, he immediately remembered that he's no match for her. So he held the mother and daughter tightly in his hands and spoke in a low voice. "If you dare act recklessly, I'll make the mother and daughter die in front of you first." Zi didn't say anything, only stood there and stared at him, giving him a lot of pressure. The black-clothed people landed from all directions, surrounding the entire battlefield. Each of them had a murderous look on their faces, ready to attack as soon as the order is given. The old man and Yan Bugui looked around, both shocked. These people definitely aren't their people. It's Yu Qianqiu's rogue cultivators. The Cultivation Alliance's side cheered. They confirmed their identities from the rogue cultivator on their chests. Aren't they the rogue cultivators that Yu Qianqiu brought here? But then they noticed something was wrong. Their aura is completely different from the previous rogue cultivators. Originally, they didn't stand in a proper manner, and even if they were to stand together, they wouldn't be able to form a team. However, as these people stood there casually, a sharp aura that was ready to be unleashed was obvious. Especially the eyes that were exposed under their masks were filled with killing intent, and each of them were like wolves waiting for an opportunity to hunt. The allure temptress looked at these people in surprise. Although she could see the words rogue cultivators on their chests, she thought more about it. The heroes who robbed them were all masked and dressed in black. Could it be them? He subconsciously glanced at Yu Qianqiu, only to see him walking out from behind a few trees with a calm face, with his hands behind his back. Standing on the hillside, his eyes scanned the surrounding black-clothed men, and an arrogant look appeared on his face. All of them were at the early stage of the crossing calamity. There were more than 600 of them. Where did he get all this from? The Enchantress of 100 Charms secretly clicked her tongue, and silently followed him out. Suddenly, she heard the sound of wind coming from both sides and immediately became alert. "Don't be nervous, he's one of us." Yu Qianqiu glanced at her and said indifferently. Two black-clothed men quickly flashed over and stood side by side in front of Yu Qianqiu. They placed their right hands on their chests and bowed silently. The surrounding 600 black-clothed men also turned to face Yu Qianqiu and bowed in the same way. That indescribable aura was very stressful. Yu Qianqiu nodded slightly, and the black-clothed men resumed their battle preparations. The two black-clothed men in front of him flashed to the left and right of Yu Qianqiu and waited for orders. The allure temptress was slightly stunned, and could only stand guard behind Yu Qianqiu. In the eyes of the people at the foot of the hill, Yu Qianqiu and the black-clothed men on his left and right were indifferently observing the battle situation below. Yan Bugui's expression changed the moment he saw Yu Qianqiu. This guy had ruined his plans time and time again. It was really infuriating. "Yu Qianqiu, why haven't you asked your men to make a move?" When are you going to wait? Qiu Wuyuan shouted from below. It could be seen that his qi was indeed running out after the continuous fierce battle with Dongfang Chang'ao. Elder Qiu, I'm really sorry we're late. Please lead everyone away from the encirclement with Elder Dongfang. Don't worry about the matter of revenge. Leave it to us, the rogue cultivators, so that we won't be affected. Yu Qianqiu shouted loudly. The allure temptress behind him rolled her eyes. They were obviously early, but he said they were late. She stretched out her sharp index finger and wanted to poke his waist again. Who knew that the two black-clothed men beside him would suddenly turn their heads and stare coldly at her? Although the allure temptress's cultivation was higher than the two of them, she still felt a little creeped out by their sharp gaze. She embarrassedly withdrew her hand. Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan exchanged glances from afar. Then, they shouted at the crowd together. Everyone retreat from the rogue cultivator's encirclement quickly. As they spoke, they struggled to break away from the entanglement of the few people. As they retreated, they did their best to provide cover for everyone. However, the foreign cultivators also understood that if they were to retreat, the opposing black-clothed men would most likely kill them. So they all stuck close to them and pestered them. Yu Qianqiu frowned and shouted softly, "Command support." Yes. The two black-clothed men replied in unison, and quickly made an order with their hand signals. The surrounding black-clothed men immediately formed into a well-trained three-man battle formation. They quickly shrunk the encirclement and closed in on the people who were fighting. The allure temptress was shocked. Just a few simple hand signals were able to command so many tribulation passing stage cultivators, as if they were one person. It was simply unbelievable. Yen Bugui and the old man in embroidered robes turned pale with fright. They felt a serious threat. Ziyi was somewhat dumbfounded as she looked at her surroundings. Those black-clothed people were cold and intimidating. Were these the same people that Yu Qianqiu had brought to wander around previously? The black-clothed men directly passed by the Hundred Flowers Palace, ignoring Ziyi and the old man in embroidered robes. They only surrounded the people outside the Hundred Flowers Palace. The encirclement shrank like a sieve, gradually filtering out the disciples of the various sects of the Cultivation Alliance, and forcing the foreign cultivators back. There were also some people who wanted to take advantage of the entanglement to escape. However, as soon as they stepped forward, the groups of three in front of them immediately separated one person from each other. The encirclement formation was not chaotic at all. However, several people attacked at the same time. When the foreign cultivator released his flying sword, he didn't even have the chance to take it back. He was cut into several pieces on the spot and instantly killed. Occasionally, there were a few who wanted to fly into the sky and escape, but they all met the same fate. The power displayed by the combined attack immediately shocked everyone present. The people that Yen Bugui brought with him no longer dared to test their sharpness, and were all forced to retreat. All of the surviving Cultivation Alliance cultivators were finally able to safely retreat. In front of the Hundred Flowers Palace, within a radius of 100 meters, more than 30 foreign cultivators were surrounded in panic, not knowing what would happen next. As soon as Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan came out, they immediately flew to Yu Qianqiu's side. When they saw the two black-clothed men beside him, they sized them up curiously. Qiu Wuyuan said in surprise, "Yu Qianqiu, are they those rogue cultivators?" Yu Qianqiu looked at the two people who were covered in blood and said with a smile, "If it's not them, where would I come from?" As he said this, he pointed at Yen Bugui and ordered his men, "Capture this person alive. I want to exchange him for hostages. Leave no one alive. Kill." The two of them quickly gave the order, and the encirclement formation changed again, becoming a small team of 10 people. Half of them quickly rushed into the encirclement, and the other half quickly closed the encirclement again. A strangulation battle, with an absolute advantage, was displayed in front of the surviving members of the Cultivation Alliance, and it really shocked everyone. The opponent almost only had one chance to attack. Once the magic weapons or magic treasures in their hands were used, they would never be able to return, and they themselves would become a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Facing more than 300 cultivators at the Crossing Calamity stage, more than 30 cultivators at the Crossing Calamity stage were quickly separated. Facing a group attack alone, and the opponent's cooperation was seamless. One could imagine the outcome. It was a battle without any suspense. The black-clothed and masked rogue cultivators killed all the opponents in a moment, at the cost of no casualties. Yen Bugue looked around in horror. He was really the only one left. He never dreamed that there were so many crossing calamity stage experts hiding in the Hundred Flowers Valley. Fortunately, the opponent obviously didn't want to kill him. The brocade-clothed old man looked down with a pale face. Although he wasn't surrounded, the purple clothes in front of him made it difficult for him to escape. Now the mother and daughter in his hands were his last life-saving talismans, and he could only hold on to them tightly. Yu Qianqiu shouted at him. "Old man in flowery clothes, listen up. I don't want to waste time with you. Let them go immediately, and I will let you and Yen Bugue go." "Words are no proof. How can I believe you?" The brocade-clothed old man shouted immediately. "I, Yu Qianqiu, value my credibility the most, and I have never gone back on my words. I guarantee with my credibility, you can rest assured," Yu Qianqiu said. The brocade-clothed old man sneered. "Credibility? Do you really think this old man is a 3-year-old child? If you swear an oath, this old man thinks it's better than credibility. You don't have the right to bargain with me. I said I will let you go. So of course I will keep my word," Yu Qianqiu coldly said. "I will count to 10, if you still don't let them go, Zi. Bring me that old man's head." Then he stared at Yen Bugue and said in a low voice, "And don't let him live." "No." Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan both shouted. Dongfang Chang, Ao shook his head. "Yu Qianqiu, we can negotiate." Bai Hua Fairy had already closed her eyes, while Yen Zixia tearfully stared at Yu Qianqiu, but he ignored her. "I have never gone back on my words. If you have the guts, then save the mother and daughter right now," Yu Qianqiu coldly said to Dongfang Chang, Ao, then turned around and began to count. 1, 2, 3. And his speed wasn't slow either. Zi slowly stepped forward. The brocade-clothed old man's face changed. He didn't think that she wouldn't even consider and forced him to make a decision. And in such a hurry. When he counted to 8, he finally shouted, "Wait. If you have something to say, then say it. I don't have the patience." Yu Qianqiu coldly snorted and continued to count. 9. "I agree," the brocade-clothed old man shouted. "I hope you can keep your promise." He really didn't have a choice. Even if he killed the mother and daughter and left Yen Bugue to escape from Zi, such a big matter would eventually reach Yen Juexing's ears. It's impossible to hide it. With Yen Juexing's relationship with Man Hu and the others, sooner or later they won't let him go. He might as well take a gamble. As long as he can escape. Even letting the mother and daughter go is the same. At least he can explain it to Yen Juexing. What if they keep their promise? That's even better. Hearing that, Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan's hearts that were already in their throats finally calmed down. "It's good that you agree. In this world you can doubt anything, but Yu Qianqiu's character, you definitely don't need to doubt it. It's always been tested." Yu Qianqiu nodded and casually said. Chapter 413. Everyone's eyes were focused on the old man, cautiously waiting for his next move. No one noticed, unknowingly, Yu Qianqiu has become the leader of this place. In fact, this was also his goal. He could have acted earlier, that way the Cultivation Alliance wouldn't have to pay such a heavy price. But he waited until the Cultivation Alliance couldn't hold on any longer, when even the brave Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan were at a disadvantage. Only then did he act. Although adding flowers to a brocade is good, it's not as good as sending charcoal in the snow to achieve his goal. After the Cultivation Alliance sacrificed hundreds of lives, he managed to turn the tide. Now he's the leader here. Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan can't interfere. From today onwards, no one in the cultivation world can say that he, the hero, is the scum of the cultivation world. He's long since disliked this title. Now that Yen Bugue and the others have arrived, of course he has to take advantage of the situation. "Since you dare to call me a scum of the cultivation world, then I'll make you pay with your blood to take back this title." From the moment he was watching the battle from the shadows, he already had this thought. Only when the situation was out of his expectations did he start to interfere. Although he agreed, the old man was still a bit hesitant, But in the end he still gritted his teeth and pushed by Hua Fairy and Yin Zixia away. Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan quickly went to protect the mother and daughter. The old man looked at Yen Bugui who was surrounded below, then shouted to Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu, I've let them go, it's time to fulfill your promise. Your worries are unnecessary, I've already said that you can doubt anything, but you definitely don't need to doubt my character. I've always been a man of my words, I've never discounted them. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand. Let them go. With that order, the black-clothed men surrounding Yen Bugui quickly moved away. The embroidered-robed old man immediately shouted, Let's go. He immediately shot into the sky. Yen Bugui looked at Bai Hua Fairy and Yen Zixia with a complicated gaze, but didn't dare to stay any longer, and also shot into the sky to chase after them. The two of them broke through the seal formation above the 100 Flowers Valley, and quickly disappeared. Retreat. Yu Qianqiu nodded. The black-robed men on both sides immediately issued an order. The black-robed men below quickly collected the storage pouches of the dead foreign cultivators. Then, they flew across the sky and disappeared into the surrounding mountains, as if they had never appeared. Everyone was stunned. Could these people really be those rogue cultivators? Even when retreating, they didn't forget to scavenge some things. They really had the demeanor of those poor rogue cultivators. However, at least he still had some morals, and didn't touch the belongings of the dead disciples of the various sections. Otherwise, it would really be difficult to recover them. Actually, it had nothing to do with morality. Yu Qianqiu knew that these second-rate disciples didn't have anything valuable on them. Why would they do something so shameful and cause trouble? On the other hand, the guests that came from afar probably had quite a bit of money on them, so he should take them back to check. Ziyi flashed back to Yu Qianqiu's side. Yu Qianqiu couldn't help but look at Yen Zixia's sorrowful eyes. He couldn't help but shake his head and smile bitterly, thinking, Eldest miss, please don't blame me for being cruel just now. The crueler I am, the safer you and your mother will be. I hope you understand. At this time, the exhausted by Zitsong's group of 4 ran over and bowed, saying, Thank you, Sir and Miss Ziyi, for saving our lives. Ziyi looked at the ragged clothes of the 4 people and frowned, but didn't say anything. No need to thank me, it's what I should do. Yu Qianqiu nodded and smiled. He also noticed the 4 people just now. It seems that the shopkeepers and workers of the 4 great families' shops were almost all killed in order to protect them. Luckily, they managed to save their lives, otherwise a few people who shouldn't have died would have died in vain. I have something to do, so I'll leave first. You guys talk. A green light flashed from his sleeve, and Yu Qianqiu stepped on his sword and left. The temptress didn't even know the 4 people, so what was there to talk about? Of course she followed them. Ziyi glanced at the 4 people. What was there to talk about? She only felt disgusted, so she sprung away. Everyone watched the 3 people leave, and then looked at the outside of the 100 Flowers Palace. There were corpses everywhere, and the survivors from each sect started to collect the corpses. The market in the 100 Flowers Valley was already deserted. When the 3 of them returned to the 100 Flowers house, there was actually no one there. They probably all went to help just now. Yu Qianqiu rubbed his stomach and said, I didn't eat anything at first, and now there's no one. What bad luck. There should be ingredients in the kitchen. You guys go and rest first, I'll send them up later. The temptress smiled and slowly walked to the back. She really did look like a servant. Yu Qianqiu didn't stand on ceremony and directly went upstairs. After entering the room, he sat in front of the round table in the center and poured himself a cup of tea. As he drank, he looked at Ziyi and asked, If you have anything you want to ask, just ask. Don't stifle yourself. This girl's doubts were all written on her face, and she didn't know how to hide it. Ziyi clasped her hands together and fidgeted for a while. Suddenly, she looked at the door guiltily and turned back to ask, Do you want me to massage your shoulders? What? Yu Qianqiu was stunned, and thought he heard wrong. Do you want me to massage your shoulders? Ziyi repeated. Yu Qianqiu's expression twitched. He didn't know what was wrong with this woman. She actually wanted to do such a thing. Even if she gave face to her father, he wouldn't dare to let her do it. So he shook his head and said, No need, no need. If you have something to say, just say it. Ziyi frowned slightly. It seemed that she was a little unhappy that he didn't let her massage him. She bit her lips and sat in front of Yu Qianqiu. She asked, "Those loose cultivators are not loose cultivators at all. Where did you find them? Why don't I know?" Yu Qianqiu replied without hesitation, "Of course, I hired them with money. If you don't pay, who would help you for free?" Ziyi's expression became serious and said, "The joint attack of these people is very powerful. If I was surrounded by them, I wouldn't be able to last long if I didn't escape. You must have spent a lot of money to hire so many people at once, right?" The sound of people coming upstairs came from outside. Yu Qianqiu didn't deny it, and just replied with an N. After a while, the temptress came in with a pile of food, and the table was almost full. The people from various sects were busy cleaning up the mess outside, but the three of them were eating and drinking comfortably in the room. The temptress took the opportunity to pour wine for Yu Qianqiu and asked, "Just now, that old man in embroidered robes had the lives of Guan Muxue and her daughter in his hands. You let him go, and that's still acceptable. But you clearly had the chance to kill Yan Bugui. Why did you use him to exchange for the lives of the mother and daughter? You let him escape for nothing." Yu Qianqiu scratched his nose and thought to himself, "The Yan father and son are targeting the Cultivation Alliance, not me. My interference has already made them very unhappy. If I really kill Yan Bugui, then just wait and see. Yan Juexing will definitely lead a group of people to fight me. The entire Chinese cultivation world needs to form the Cultivation Alliance to be able to fight them. I have nothing better to do. If I want to become enemies with these powerful people who killed my father, I'd be more likely to have a problem with my brain. You guys continue to fight, I'll just cheer you on from the side. Don't think that I'll get too involved." Yu Qianqiu drank a mouthful of wine and ate a mouthful of food, then casually explained, "Some time ago, in order to split the money, the previous palace master of the 10,000 demons, Senior Yan Wuchun, had given me face. How could I have the cheek to kill his only son? Just take it as returning the old man's favor." The temptress nodded slightly. She had also heard about the matter of splitting the money, but she was more or less confused. There was no other reason, but the key was that this little fox was too sincere, which made her suspicious. On the coast of the East Sea, the heroes of the Cultivation Alliance, the righteous and the evil sects were stationed there. The defensive line was pulled apart along the coast, spanning hundreds of miles. This was originally a place where the coastal residents lived and fished for generations. However, in order to not implicate these ordinary people, the Fuxian Island used its control over the secular imperial power to force the local residents to move away. Although it was done with good intentions, the relocation was not a small number. Therefore, hundreds of thousands of people were forced to leave their homes. For a time, it caused public discontent and almost led to a civil uprising. In the end, it was General Wei who led the army to suppress it forcefully. They barely managed to move away, but the resettlement of hundreds of thousands of people became a problem. However, corrupt officials were running rampant in the imperial court, and the money allocated by the upper echelons was embezzled layer by layer. How much of it could fall into the hands of the people? If the livelihood of hundreds of thousands of people became a problem, it was only a matter of time before something big happened. This was not something the cultivation world would care about, and no one would care about. They had already fought with the foreign cultivators a few times, and both sides had suffered some losses. Currently, both sides were actively adjusting, preparing to compete with each other again. However, at this time, the Cultivation Alliance suddenly received news that Yan Bugui had secretly brought dozens of tribulation passing stage experts to attack the headquarters of the Cultivation Alliance, the 100 Flowers Valley. Fortunately, Yu Qianqiu led more than 600 loose cultivators, and arrived in time. Almost all of Yan Bugui's group were killed. Unfortunately, in order to save Bai Hua Fairy and her daughter, Yan Bugui and a late-stage tribulation passing stage expert were released. When the various sects heard this news, they couldn't believe it. Just the loose cultivators under Yu Qianqiu could kill dozens of tribulation passing stage experts? So they all sent messages to their own people to ask for more details. The result was that the more than 600 loose cultivators led by Yu Qianqiu were not ordinary loose cultivators. They were all tribulation passing stage experts. The various sects were shocked when they heard this. More than 600 tribulation passing stage experts? After confirming it several times, they finally believed it was true. The various sects gathered again to discuss this matter. It was a crucial moment in the war. How could they not use so many experts in the rear? So the Luo sect suggested that no matter where those loose cultivators came from, Yu Qianqiu could leave 50 loose cultivators to continue defending the 100 Flowers Valley, and the remaining 500 loose cultivators would be transferred to the various sects to prepare for the war. This proposal was unanimously supported by the various sections. Everyone knew very well why they did this. No one could rest assured that Yu Qianqiu had such a strong force in his hands. Especially sects like the Luo sect who had a grudge against him. It was better to split them up as soon as possible. Of course, jealousy was also a practical reason. All the sects wanted to take a bite out of it. The news of the transfer was immediately sent back. When Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan received the news, they looked at each other. Anyone with a brain would know what it meant, not to mention someone like Yu Qianqiu who didn't want to be at a disadvantage. Dongfang Chang, Ao said in a low voice, "Brother Qiu, you and Yu Qianqiu have always been brothers. I think it's better for you to make the decision." Chapter 414. There's no need for me to explain what this means. Qiu Wuyuan tossed the jade archive in his hand onto the tea table and chuckled. Didn't you see how obedient those people are towards Yu Qianqiu? Do you think Yu Qianqiu will obediently hand over such a useful subordinate? Sigh. Whether he's willing or not, one of us has to go talk to him. Otherwise, we won't be able to answer to the various sections. Dongfang Chang'eo said helplessly. He just saved our lives, and we're going to cut his flesh off. Who has the guts to say such a thing? Qiu Wuyuan slapped the tea table beside him. Dongfang Chang'eo frowned. They didn't see the situation at the time. It's easy for them to talk. But since my supporting Immortal Island and the 10,000 demons have agreed, and we're the ones in charge here, only you and I can talk to him. Talk my ass. Qiu Wuyuan shot to his feet. He pointed to the east and said angrily, "They only dared to speak so shamelessly because they're far away from us. Believe it or not, if they were face to face, none of them would dare to say something like that to Yu Qianqiu's face. With that brat's virtue, no matter how high your cultivation base is, no matter who you are, he dares to kill you on the spot. Which sect would dare to fart like that? The decree of the 10,000 demons is also here. Would you dare to disobey it?" Dongfang Chang'eo asked. When Qiu Wuyuan heard that, he was so angry that he glared at him and sat down again. Dongfang Chang'eo stood up and sighed. "We can't waste our time here. Let's go. We'll go together. If we're going to lose face, we'll lose face together." Upstairs in the 100 Flowers house, Yu Qianqiu was pinching his chin and smiling coldly at the window. The moment the coast of the East Sea came out with the results of the discussion, Baishan had immediately sent a message to him, and had the Bai clan's people inform him of the news. He waited there to see who in the Cultivation Alliance would tell him the good news. The Allure Enchantress, who was leaning on the side, frowned slightly. She was secretly the leader of the Pink sect, so she naturally knew the results of the discussion. Yu Qianqiu glanced at her and sneered. "None of you so-called sects are good people. If I had known earlier, I would have killed all the disciples of the various sects in the 100 Flowers Valley. A bunch of people who bite the hand that feeds them." The temptress rolled her eyes and said, "Why are you scolding me too? Most of the sects agree. How can a small pink sect like me stop it? Besides, are you really that easy to talk to? Will you hand him over?" Yu Qianqiu snorted coldly but didn't say anything. He thought to himself, "There's more to come, let's play slowly. Hey, let me ask you, what's the relationship between the 600 lone cultivators and the hero?" The Allure Enchantress smiled and leaned over, then poked his waist with her finger. Yu Qianqiu shook his head and said, "There's no relationship at all, don't think too much." Zi, who was sitting obediently at the side, widened her eyes and looked at the two of them. She could understand the first part of the conversation, but the more she listened, the more confused she became. Seeing the two of them being intimate with each other, an inexplicable feeling of jealousy arose in her heart. "They're here," Yu Qianqiu said as he looked at Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan. The allure enchantress looked over, and the two people below also saw the two people at the window above. They looked at each other and walked into the 100 Flowers Valley in silence. Once the two of them entered the room, Yu Qianqiu waved his hand at them and said, "You don't have to say anything, I already know. For the sake of the big picture, I don't have any opinions, but to be honest, I can't make the decision for those lone cultivators. If you have anything to say it to them face to face. I won't get involved, in case they say that I'm trying to ruin things. Let's go. Follow me to see them." The two of them were stunned, then they thought about it and realized that it was true. The people from the 4 major clans had probably told him before they did. But this was also good, to avoid awkwardness. Thus, the two of them didn't say a word and followed him out. However, they were cursing in their hearts. Is this guy that easy to talk to? Once they left the 100 Flowers Valley, they saw people bowing to Yu Qianqiu. After all, he saved everyone's lives. Yu Qianqiu smiled and waved his hand along the way. The group left the 100 Flowers Valley. Yu Qianqiu threw out a flying sword and stepped on it. The few of them landed in a remote valley. Looking around and not seeing anyone, Yu Qianqiu clapped his hands. Suddenly, someone shouted from a dark corner of the valley, "Who's there?" "The Heavenly King covers the Earth Tiger." Yu Qianqiu shook his head and said something that confused the few of them. Someone in the dark immediately replied, "The pagoda suppresses the river demon." The few of them immediately understood that it was a secret code. They were all shocked by such a classic secret code and looked at each other. A few figures shot over. They were the loose cultivators. Most of the black cloth covering their heads had been lifted up, revealing their noses and mouths. Their mouths were stained with a lot of mud, and they were chewing as if they were eating something. Dongfangchang, Ao, and the others shifted their gazes to their hands. Some of them were holding wild sweet potatoes, while others were holding wild mountain spirits. Most of them had been bitten off. They were eating this, but they didn't seem to have been washed, so they just casually peeled the dirt and ate it. The few of them were confused and didn't know what was going on. However, Yu Qianqiu shook his head and sighed. "Brothers, I've let you down." Sigh. Elder Dongfang of Supporting Celestial Island and Elder Qiu of 10,000 Demons have brought the decree of the Cultivation Alliance. Do as you wish, I won't say anything else. After that, he quietly walked to the side with his back facing the others. Let them down? What did this guy do? The few of them were even more confused. Dongfangchang, Ao, and Qiu Wuyuan exchanged glances. Qiu Wuyuan took a step forward and coughed. We've received a decree from the Cultivation Alliance. In order to deal with the foreign cultivators' provocation, we've decided to transfer 500 people from your group to support them. Prepare to depart today. The leader spat out the thing in his mouth and waved his hand at Qiu Wuyuan. What bullsh** T decree? We're done, we're not going to do it anymore. When they took the money, they didn't give us a share, but when they fought for their lives, they thought of us. Damn it, we haven't even gotten a single spirit stone until now. We've been digging for these things in the mountains every day to eat. What a joke. As he said that, he threw away the half of the wild sweet potato. The few people beside him also threw away the things in their hands and shouted, "That's right, if you don't give us money, we're done, we're done." They wiped their mouths and pulled down their masks again. Dongfangchang, Ao frowned, and Qiu Wuyuan's face darkened. Neither of them were fools. In the end, they made such a big scene to scare people. In the end, it was all for money. It was very Yu Qianqiu's style. If it wasn't Yu Qianqiu's instruction, then it would be a miracle. Ziyi nodded in agreement with these masked rogue cultivators' statement that they wouldn't do it if they didn't give them money. However, she was a little confused as to why they would eat this thing. Allure Beauty couldn't help but smile. If this guy wanted to do it, why didn't he make it more realistic? Why did he have to make it so full of flaws? Would a tribulation passing stage cultivator be so hungry that they would dig wild sweet potatoes in the mountains to eat? With their cultivation, it wouldn't be a problem for them to abstain from food for half a year. Asking for money with this reason was too lame. Yu Qianqiu, what do you mean? Qiu Wuyuan turned around and asked. His face darkened, as if he had been tricked. Yu Qianqiu snorted coldly. He thought to himself, it's good that you understand. I'm just afraid that you don't, or you'll really think that I'm an idiot." He slowly turned around and said, "I don't mean anything. What they mean is their own. It has nothing to do with me." Dongfangchang, Ao patted Qiu Wuyuan's arm, signaling him to calm down. He walked out and said to the rogue cultivators, "We've already delivered the decree. If you have any requests, why don't you tell me? I'll pass it on to the Cultivation Alliance." Elder Dongfang is wise. The leader of the masked rogue cultivators cupped his fists and said, "We're all rogue cultivators. When the Cultivation Alliance doesn't need us, they don't even bother to look us in the eye. Now that we can use it, they want us to risk our lives for a so-called decree. What a good plan. We have the elderly and the young to take care of, and we don't have a sect to guarantee us. If we die, we'll lose everything. Now we only have one request, and that is to give us some settlement allowance. That way, even if we die, we can't say anything. We have the elderly and the young to take care of. Settlement allowance? Why does it sound like something from the secular world?" Dongfangchang, Ao was slightly stunned. He almost didn't understand what they meant, but he understood that they still wanted money. He took a deep breath and tried to remain calm. He said, "How much money do you want? You can tell me directly. I'll pass it on to the Cultivation Alliance. As for whether they'll give it to you, I can't guarantee." The leader of the masked rogue cultivators said, "We have more than 600 brothers. Each of us will ask for 100,000 upper-grade spirit stones. If it's less than that, then there's no need to say any more. More than 60 million upper-grade spirit stones. You're asking for an exorbitant price." Qiu Wuyuan sneered. "Elder Qiu, you can say whatever you want. In short, don't force anyone. If you give us the money, we'll do it. If not, we'll just leave. The world is a big place. I believe that if we 600 brothers unite together, it won't be difficult to get 60 million. What do you think, Elder Qiu?" The leader of the masked rogue cultivators said calmly, but everyone could hear the threat in his words. Dongfangchang, Ao raised his hand to stop Qiu Wuyuan, who was a little impulsive. He nodded and said, "I understand what you mean. I'll pass on the message. Let's put it this way for now. I'll let you know when I get a reply." Without another word, Qiu Wuyuan took the lead and flew away. Dongfangchang, Ao cupped his hands at everyone and left as well. "Good job. You guys continue. I won't disturb you anymore," Yu Qianqiu said with a smile. He threw out a flying sword and flew away. The two girls followed behind him. Just like that, the few of them slipped away, but they didn't get any practical results. When the various sects received the news, many of them immediately cursed. However, they still felt that letting these people gather together was a threat. They had to find a way to break them up. At the same time, they all wanted to recruit their own sections. Especially in this situation, everyone knew what it meant to have a group of tribulation passing stage cultivators. A slightly bigger sect could fork out 60 million upper-grade spirit stones each, but no one wanted to let the 600 rogue cultivators have it all to themselves. Therefore, the various sects came up with a way to pool the money. According to the calculation of 100,000 upper-grade spirit stones per person, the 600 rogue cultivators were divided up. When Dongfangchang, Ao, and Qiu Wuyuan received the news, they went to look for the rogue cultivators again. Who knew that these guys wouldn't act until they saw the rabbit? They insisted on getting the spirit stones first. Chapter 4:15. In the face of such a request, you couldn't say that they were too much, but they still didn't know what was good for them. Qiu Wuyuan's face darkened, and he didn't say a word. He had never been threatened like this before. Dongfangchang, Ao asked expressionlessly, "How many people do you have? Tell me, and I'll try replying to the Cultivation Alliance." 632 people. As long as we get the money, we promise we'll rush over immediately. Don't worry, we'll do what we say. Okay. Dongfangchang, Ao agreed without hesitation. The two of them returned and once again conveyed the loose cultivator's request. Although the sects were furious when they heard the news, it was worth it to be able to poach all of Yu Qianqiu's subordinates and turn him into a loner. Therefore, they ordered the people in the 100 Flowers Valley to raise the money and give it to Dongfangchang, Ao, and Qiu Wuyuan. The sects didn't believe that these people would run away with the money and harm the interests of the sections. Although 600 people in the early stage of tribulation passing were powerful, they couldn't withstand the anger of the entire Chinese cultivation world. In the headquarters of the Cultivation Alliance, Qiu Wuyuan held the storage bag in his hand and snorted. Now that the spirit stones are ready, let's see what else they can do, unless they want to go against the entire Cultivation Alliance. Dong Fengchang, Ao frowned slightly. Yu Qianqiu had been too calm for the past 2 days, as if this had nothing to do with him at all. Could he really hand over these people so easily? Did you notice something wrong with Yu Qianqiu? Dong Fengchang Ao asked. Yes. This kid never does things that are disadvantageous to him. I'm a little uncertain now, Qiu Wuyuan said suspiciously. There must be something strange when something is out of the ordinary. Dong Fengchang Ao pondered for a while, then shook his head and said, forget it. The Cultivation Alliance is in the wrong in this matter. We just need to do our duty as a messenger. Zai. Let's go again. The two of them walked out of the headquarters of the Cultivation Alliance and saw that the shops of the various sects were hung with white soul-summoning banners. Many people were wearing sackcloth. Tonight, there would be a memorial ceremony. Naturally, it was to mourn the dead disciples of the various sections. Upon seeing this, both of their hearts sank. Many disciples from supporting Immortal's island and 10,000 demons had also died. When they passed by the 100 Flowers house, Yu Qianqiu was holding a cup of tea and chatting with the 100 Charms enchantress. When he saw the two of them passing by, he waved his hand in a friendly manner, and the two of them nodded slightly in response. After watching the two of them leave the 100 Flowers Valley, the allure temptress turned around and smiled. Little fox, what are you up to this time? Can you tell me a little? Yu Qianqiu shook his head innocently and sighed. I'm obviously living a peaceful life here. Why do you think I'm up to no good? Sigh. My heart was originally directed to the bright moon, but the bright moon shines on the ditch. Oh. Then I'll wait and see. I hope there won't be a day where I reveal my foxtail. The allure temptress giggled. Ze, who was at the side, sadly realized that she was a little unnecessary here. Outside the 100 Flowers Valley, Qiu Wuyuan frowned and said, I'm a little curious. That allure temptress has been in hiding for so many years. How did she end up with Yu Qianqiu? You can go and ask her. See if you can find out the reason. Dong Fengchang, Ao said and flew towards the place where the wandering cultivators were hiding. Qiu Wuyuan glared at him and followed. Ever since the battle, the two of them had become much more harmonious. They were still in the hidden and dark valley. The two of them looked around at the dark and damp environment. They really had to hand it to these people. They could actually hide here every day without moving. After the disgusting cut secret signal, the few people appeared again. Dong Fengchang, Ao threw the storage bag in his hand to the leader of the wandering cultivators and said, 63,200,000 upper-grade spiritual stones, not a single one less. You guys take a look. The leader nodded and said, all right. Tomorrow morning, we'll gather outside the 100 Flowers Valley and immediately head to the coast of the East Sea. Dong Fengchang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan looked at each other. Obviously, they did not expect the other party to agree so easily. Qiu Wuyuan said in a deep voice, I've given you the spiritual stones. I hope you guys can keep your promise. I don't want 632 people to be missing. Don't worry, Elder Qiu. Tomorrow, you'll see that all 632 wandering cultivators, who showed up outside the 100 Flowers Palace, will appear outside the 100 Flowers Valley for you to count. We won't go back on our words. The leader of the wandering cultivators promised in a powerful voice. That's great. But I hope you guys remember not to run away with the money. Yu Qianqiu won't be able to bear the consequences. Qiu Wuyuan warned. The meaning of his words was clear. We have already determined that you guys are Yu Qianqiu's people. If you run away, the Cultivation Alliance will not look for you. They will look for Yu Qianqiu to settle the score. He suspected that the most likely thing these people would do was to take off their masks and run away. These people were obviously not the wandering cultivators from before. No one knew them. If they ran away, it would be really hard to find them. Thank you for your advice, Elder Qiu. See you tomorrow. The leader of the wandering cultivators sneered and waved his hand. The few of them went back into the darkness. It was night and the moon was bright. The market in the 100 Flowers Valley that was originally bright all night was closed. The center of the square that had been cleared out was piled with firewood, burning it to the sky. People from various sects gathered in circles and sat cross-legged. Many of them held a piece of wooden board in their hands and wrote the names of their dead disciples on it. Then, people from various sects threw these wooden boards into the raging fire. This was a unique ceremony in the Chinese cultivation world. There were no complicated ceremonies and no one spoke. It was very quiet. The only thing that could be heard was the sound of the burning fire and the crackling of the wood. As the wooden boards with names written on them were thrown into the fire, the dead disciples were completely cut off from this world. Tonight, the people from the various sects would silently sit here for the entire night, mourning the deaths of their fellow sect members. The Allure Beauty came upstairs with wine and food. She looked around the room and found that Yu Qianqiu was no longer in the room. Only Ziyi was leaning on the window, looking at the square where the ceremony was held. Looking at her, she seemed to be curious about this kind of ceremony. "Miss Ziyi, where did Yu Qianqiu go?" The Allure Beauty walked over and asked. Ziyi raised her hand and pointed to the opposite roof, saying, "There." The Allure Beauty looked out of the window and looked in the direction of her finger. She saw Yu Qianqiu standing on the opposite roof with his hands behind his back. He was in a daze under the bright moon. No one knew what he was thinking about. "Let's go up too." The Allure Beauty looked at the dishes in her hands and said. Ziyi nodded and took the lead to go up the opposite roof. The Allure Beauty held the things in her hands and floated up. When the two of them came, Yu Qianqiu looked back slightly and was a little indifferent. He turned his head and looked at the raging fire in the square. The two of them didn't disturb him. The Allure Beauty gave Ziyi a look and passed the tray in her hands to her. Then, she turned around and flashed back into the opposite house. The two of them had been together for a few days and were gradually able to accommodate each other. After a while, the Allure Beauty came back with a short table on the couch. She bent down and set it up on the roof. Then she made a gesture to Ziyi. Ziyi's eyes lit up and understood the Allure Beauty's meaning. The two of them quickly took out the dishes and placed them on the short table. The Allure Beauty poured a cup of wine and walked to Yu Qianqiu's side. She smiled and said, "Why are you so focused? What are you thinking?" Ziyi looked at the two of them and looked at the big moon above her head. She picked up her chopsticks and ate happily. It seemed like it was the first time she ate under the moon. Yu Qianqiu shook his head slightly and said, "Think about how many people will remember them after they die. If I, Yu Qianqiu, become like them one day, how many people will remember me, Yu Qianqiu?" As soon as he said that, a few old turtles flew past under the bright moon, leaving behind a few ear-piercing screeches. In the present age, the old turtle was regarded as an inauspicious symbol. Coincidentally, it appeared when Yu Qianqiu said those words. The Allure Enchantress raised her head and took a look. Her expression changed slightly as she pouted. "What nonsense are you talking about?" Yu Qianqiu smiled faintly and took the cup from her hand. As soon as he put it to his lips, he suddenly paused. The Allure Beauty followed his gaze and saw that Bai Hua Fairy had personally led Bai Hua Palace's disciples to the square, blocking the gap formed by the sect's encirclement. "I heard that the 600 or so loose cultivators have really accepted the Cultivation Alliance's decree and will be heading to the Eastern Sea tomorrow. If Yanbu Gui brings people to forcefully welcome Guan Muxue and her daughter, who can stop them with just the people here?" The Allure Beauty looked away and said worriedly, "Don't worry, they've suffered a great loss this time, so they won't come back for a while. Even if Yanbu Gui wants to come, those foreign cultivators won't risk the lives of their disciples for his own selfish reasons. After all, it's enough to scare them for a while. Under such a situation, Yanbu Gui would not dare to act rashly." Yu Qianqiu smiled confidently as he drained the wine in his cup in one gulp. It was as if he was passing judgment on the world. The Allure Beauty looked at him and was a bit surprised. A complicated look flashed through her eyes. She took the cup from his hand and said, "You've really calculated everything, but I don't believe that you'll really give those people to the Cultivation Alliance for nothing?" Yu Qianqiu smiled noncommittally. This woman always talked about this topic after a few sentences. He changed the topic and said, Palace Lord Yi, after the defeat of the magical illusion palace, did you also hold such a memorial ceremony for the disciples who died in the battle? Hearing this, the complexion of the Allure Beauty changed. She could no longer smile. With a somewhat absent-minded expression, she cast her gaze towards the raging flames on the square. She softly sighed, bowed, and placed the wine cup in her hand on the short table. Sitting cross-legged on the roof, she took out a zither from her storage bag and began to play it. The melancholy in the music was hard to suppress. The sudden sound of the zither attracted the attention of everyone in the square. Seeing that it was the three of them, they silently looked away and continued to meditate. On the other hand, Bai Hua Fairy and her daughter's gazes lingered on Yu Qianqiu for a bit. Purple Dress bit her chopsticks, looked at the Allure Beauty for a bit, then continued to eat her food. After getting rid of the Allure Beauty's question, Yu Qianqiu looked at the white banners in the square, thinking about the 600 subordinates who would set off tomorrow. He didn't know what would happen to them, so he couldn't help but feel a bit down. Thinking about the Utopia Alliance's army of almost 10,000 ready to go, his fighting spirit rose again. Listening to the Allure Beauty's melancholy music, he suddenly felt a sense of pride to compete against fate. He turned around and picked up the wine pot and cup, poured himself a cup, then another. After thinking for a bit, he gave the cup to the moon and shook his head. Circulating his true essence, he suppressed the zither music and slowly recited, singing to wine, how long is life? Like the morning dew. The days past are bitter. Generous, unforgettable. Only Dukong can solve my worries. Indigo collar, my heart is long. But for my lord, I have pondered until now. Every word was sent out clearly in the square, and everyone looked over in surprise. The recitation and melancholy music were supposed to be incompatible, but it produced another kind of beauty. They complemented each other, and it was extremely wonderful. The Allure Beauty stopped playing in shock and looked at him in a daze. This man gave her a feeling that he was becoming more and more unfathomable. He usually looked like he wasn't serious, but he was actually very astute. It was already surprising that he could play the zither and compose music, but in the blink of an eye, he could come up with such wonderful lyrics. It had to be said that he was a serious talent. Even if a talent like him wasn't in the cultivation world, he would definitely be famous in the secular world. Purple Dress stuck her chopsticks in her mouth again, staring at him with wide eyes. She also realized that she couldn't see through him anymore. The people below could not help but think, singing to wine, how long is there? Like the morning dew, the days past are bitter. Generous, unforgettable. Only Dukong can solve my worries. But for my lord, my heart is long. But for my lord, I have pondered until now. After thinking about it, they all looked at Yu Qianqiu with a lot of emotions. From the words itself, it seems like he was lamenting about life, thinking about someone. This was a perfect eulogy. Bai Hua Fairy stared at Yu Qianqiu, who was drinking to the moon on the rooftop, and nodded slightly, then turned to look at her daughter. Seeing that she was a bit lost, she silently closed her eyes. As the music stopped, Yu Qianqiu also realized that his emotions were a bit messy, so he drank the rest of the wine in his cup and returned to 100 Flowers' house. The next day, Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan arrived at the 100 Flowers Valley early in the morning to wait. When the sun rose, the masked rogue cultivators really did come, gathering in front of the two of them from all directions. The leader walked over and clasped his fist. We are ready, please give us the pass. As it was the time of the war, every sect had sent people to search for suspicious cultivators. Without the pass of the Cultivation Alliance, it would be a bit troublesome. There might even be a misunderstanding. Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan checked and nodded. Sure enough, they were all tribulation-passing realm early-stage cultivators. No one messed around. But then the two of them frowned. Qiu Wuyuan shouted. You took 63. 2 million high-grade spirit stones. There should be 632 people. Why are you still missing 2? Elder Qiu, no need to rush. We are true to our words. The other 2 should be here soon. Just wait for a bit, the leader said. Just as Qiu Wuyuan snorted, someone shouted. They're coming, they're coming. Ah, I almost overslept. The voice was so familiar. Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan's expression changed at the same time. Yu Qianqiu smiled and clasped his fist at the two of them, then turned to the group of rogue cultivators. Are you ready? I just borrowed 10 large flying mystic instruments from the shops of the 4 major families. It should be enough to send us there. Dongfang Chang'ao frowned. Qiu Wuyuan said in a deep voice. Yu Qianqiu, why are you here again? Ha! Yu Qianqiu turned around and said. Zi and I are both rogue cultivators, and we each received 100,000 high-grade spirit stones yesterday. Naturally, we have to go to the coast of East Sea to participate in the war according to the agreement between you and the rogue cultivators. Beauty of 100 Charms was surprised. Yu Qianqiu, you and Zi are going to the coast of East Sea too? What about me? Yu Qianqiu snickered. You're not a rogue cultivator, and you didn't get any money, of course you have to stay here. He didn't tell her, although he was afraid that the secret would be leaked, and he also wanted to find a reason to dump her. With her around, there were many things that he couldn't do freely. In fact, he also didn't tell Zi, but she definitely wouldn't doubt his decision. You want to dump me and leave me here alone? The 100 Charm enchantress shouted in a delicate voice. Dongfang Chang'ao frowned. Yu Qianqiu, the Cultivation Alliance didn't send you a decree. Why are you going there? That's not right. The Cultivation Alliance allocated 63,200,000 high-grade spirit stones, including me and Zi. There were 632 rogue cultivators outside the 100-flower palace. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and pointed at the masked rogue cultivators. Although they didn't ask for my name, they didn't ask for theirs either. But they already gave me the money. Isn't it asking me to go too? Do they want me and Zi to wear masked clothes too? That's fine, luckily I have a few more here. As he spoke, he really took out 2 masked clothes with the word Rogue Cultivator embroidered on them from his storage bag, threw one to Zi, and put it on in front of everyone. Zi looked at him with the clothes and put on the masked clothes too. After the two of them put on, they immediately stood among the rogue cultivators. The leader of the masked rogue cultivators stretched out his hand and said, 632 rogue cultivators are here, elders. Please give us the pass so we can report to the Cultivation Alliance as soon as possible. Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan looked at each other. So Yu Qianqiu was waiting for them here. Just think about it. All the sects treated Yu Qianqiu as the representative of the rogue cultivators, but they didn't expect him to be a rogue cultivator too. In fact, let alone the sects, the two of them also neglected this point. This was bad. No one told these rogue cultivators that once they arrived at the coast of East Sea, they would be separated into different sections. They were going to be divided according to the method of distributing tasks after they arrived. If Yu Qianqiu brought them there, who among the sects would be able to poach them from his hands? This guy could beat or scold them at any time, not to mention he brought so many loyal subordinates with him. He was even less afraid of anyone. It's over. All the sects were cheated of more than 60 million by him for nothing. Yu Qianqiu, what are you trying to do? Qiu Wuyuan shouted with a livid face. What am I trying to do? Yu Qianqiu sneered, took off his mask and said coldly. Of course I'm following the decree of the Cultivation Alliance, going to the coast of East Sea to participate in the battle. Why? Did I say something wrong? Qiu Wuyuan was so angry that he couldn't speak. If he really sent this guy over, the various sects would not be able to poach him and lose a large sum of money. It would be strange if they didn't settle the score with him and Dongfang Chang, Ao later. Chapter 416. What's wrong with me? Yu Qianqiu patted his chest and said, everyone knows that I'm a man of my word. Since I've already accepted the money, I will never go back on my word. I will never be a villain who goes back on his word. As for this, you can rest assured. Even if we don't have the token, we will still barge our way through. We will not be intimidated by any obstacles. His words were clearly a threat. His meaning was clear. If you don't give me the token, don't blame me for not warning you in advance if you run into any sects checking on us on the way and something unexpected happens. Qiu Wuyuan was so angry that he laughed and said, you're a man of your word? I wonder who would believe you. It seems like you've always been the one praising yourself. Whether you're a man of your word or not, it's not up to you to decide. It's up to others to judge you. F***ck. How dare you doubt my character? Yu Qianqiu raised an eyebrow and said, "The world has many misunderstandings about me. If I don't say it out loud, who would know that I, Yu Qianqiu, am a man of my word? You're twisting words and forcing logic." Qiu Wuyuan was about to refute him when Dongfang Chang'eo waved an arm in front of him, stopping him from speaking any further. With his other hand, he took out a jade archive and tossed it to Yu Qianqiu, saying, "The token is here. Hurry up and report back." Qiu Wuyuan was taken aback. He looked at Dongfang Chang'eo in confusion, but the latter shook his head slightly. Yu Qianqiu caught the jade archive and tossed it to the masked rogue cultivator behind him. He glanced at the two of them and spat, "Damn it. I didn't expect to save an ingrate. If I had known this would happen, I would have just let Yan Bugui and the others kill him. Why would I want to interfere in this matter? I'll be at ease if they're all dead. It'll save me some trouble." Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan's expressions changed. Although the other party's words were harsh, he did save their lives. Compared to the debt of saving their lives, one or two harsh words were really nothing. Therefore, the two of them did not say anything else. Seeing that there was no response from the other party and that he had obtained the pass, Yu Qianqiu could not be bothered to argue anymore. He took out a bunch of flying artifacts from his storage bag and distributed them to the masked loose cultivator. He kept 6 of them and kept the rest back. He said that he borrowed 10 of the best flying artifacts from the shops of the 4 great clans, but in fact he spent a lot of money to make these 10 flying artifacts. Of course, when he said that he had spent a lot of money, he had used a lot of rare materials of his own, not a lot of spirit stones. Naturally, the cost of making it was completely free. The 4 great clans were too embarrassed to accept his money. However, they did obtain a lot of good materials during the making process. Long before the saber drawing assembly, he had a secret discussion with the head of the Jing clan, who specialized in making flying artifacts. Jing Feihong had agreed to help him make 10 flying artifacts that could carry 10,000 people at the same time, using the most secretive techniques from the Jing clan. Each artifact had to be able to carry at least 1,000 people. Even so, Yu Qianqiu's requirements were extremely strict. He wanted these 10 flying artifacts to not only have the best techniques, but also to be made of the most durable materials. Especially the outer shell. It had to be able to withstand an attack from an expert in the final stage of the tribulation passing stage. At the very least, it had to be able to withstand an attack from an expert in the final stage of the tribulation passing stage. Jing Feihong was shocked to hear this. It was reasonable to use the most durable materials, but why did they need to make the shell so sturdy? Flying artifacts were used to carry people. Who would use a flying artifact to fight an expert in the final stage of the tribulation passing stage? Jing Feihong thought about it, shook his head and smiled bitterly. He said, "Perhaps we can find some rare materials to make a small flying artifact. However, where can we find so many good materials to make 10 such large flying artifacts? Moreover, they have to be able to withstand an attack from an expert in the final stage of the tribulation passing stage. The Jing clan is really helpless. You don't have to worry about this. I will provide the materials. What do you think of using this to make them?" Yu Qianqiu said as he secretly stuffed something into Jing Feihong's hands. Jing Feihong took a look at it and was instantly shocked. He said, "Nether iron." The Jing clan was good at making artifacts, so they were naturally better at identifying these things. They immediately recognized what it was. It was actually the world's rare nether iron. If you use nether iron to make them, they should be able to withstand an attack from an expert in the final stage of the tribulation passing stage, right? Yu Qianqiu asked this because he wasn't too sure. He had never fought with an expert in the final stage of the tribulation passing stage, because he knew that the final stage and the middle stage of the tribulation passing stage were 2 completely different concepts. He had never dared to try fighting someone like that. Being beaten up was a small matter. At worst, he could just get back up after falling down. The important thing was that big boss you couldn't afford to lose face like that. Absolutely no problem, unless the other party has some powerful artifact. Jing Feihong held the item in his hands and nodded as he looked at it. Then he asked suspiciously, "Even if we use nether iron to make them, the materials needed to make 10 ships are not something that can be easily obtained. Mister, How can you find so much nether iron? You don't have to worry about this. Just tell me how much you need. Yu Qianqiu patted his chest confidently. This. Jing Feihong thought for a while and said, the amount of nether iron needed to make 10 ships, based on the storage bags in 3 rooms, would be at least 8 bags. That much? Yu Qianqiu was shocked. Jing Feihong nodded and said, if we use all of them with nether iron and add on the other things that we need, 8 bags would barely be enough. If we only need to use some in the crucial areas, 1 bag would be enough. Forget it. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and gritted his teeth. You don't have to worry about the materials. I'll gather 10 bags for you as soon as possible. Use all of them with nether iron. They have to be sturdy and durable. Jing Feihong watched him leave, dumbfounded. He didn't know if he would really be able to get 10 bags of nether iron. Without another word, Yu Qianqiu returned to Utopia on the same day. Back when he was digging the tunnels in the Hades cave, he had collected quite a lot of nether iron. Putting them all together, there were barely 3 bags. Chen Feng had even cried and begged him to keep at least half of them. He said that once he figured out a way to refine nether iron, he would let the entire Utopia army use nether iron artifacts. Originally, Yu Qianqiu didn't want to keep them, but after hearing what Chen Feng said, he was tempted. He had no choice but to make another trip to the Hades cave. He spent close to a day digging out a large tumor in the intestine-like Hades cave before finally getting 10 bags. The next day, when he really handed the 10 bags of nether iron to Jing Feihong gulped hard. He couldn't believe that this was real. After coming back to his senses, he immediately promised, I'll definitely create those 10 artifacts as soon as possible. Yu Qianqiu recalled that Chen Feng had said that refining nether iron was very troublesome, so he asked Jing Feihong, it might be more troublesome to refine nether iron. Does your Jing family have a way? Mister, you don't have to worry about this. My Jing family relies on refining artifacts, so we naturally have a set of secret refining techniques that won't be leaked, Jing Feihong said confidently. Yu Qianqiu's eyes lit up, and he immediately became interested. He asked, what secret technique? Can you give me a set of recipes so that I can broaden my horizons? This, Jing Feihong said hesitantly. This is the Jing family's foundation. The secret refining technique has always been kept by the Elders Guild. If you want to take it out, you have to get the Elders Guild's approval. I'm afraid it'll be difficult to take it out in a short period of time. Haha, don't worry, I'm just asking casually, Yu Qianqiu said with a smile. In his heart, however, he was thinking that he would get it sooner or later, so he couldn't push them too hard. He had to wait for them to finish the 10 flying artifacts first. Just like that, Yu Qianqiu waited for news of the Jing family's flying artifacts. The day before yesterday, someone from the Jing family's shop came to say that the artifacts would be quietly delivered to the 100 Flowers Valley the next night. So the next day, after the masked loose cultivator received the spirit stones from Dongfangchang, Ao and Qiuwuyuan, he delayed his departure to the next day. The reason was that Yu Qianqiu wanted to wait until he got the artifacts before he left. A flying artifact could carry 1,000 people, so it was more than enough to carry 600 people. But after all, it was the first test. For the sake of speed and safety, Yu Qianqiu decided to scatter the 600 people. First, the smaller the size of the flying artifact, the faster it could fly. Second, if there was an accident, they wouldn't be killed all at once. On the surface, they were masked loose cultivators, but in reality, they were the 6 captains of the special forces. They threw the artifacts in their hands at the same time, and in the blink of an eye, 6 black flying artifacts with 2 sharp ends and round waists appeared in the sky. 2 pairs of legs stretched out from the bottom, and the 6 artifacts landed on the ground side by side. When the sun rose, it was supposed to be the time for everything to wake up and be full of life. But when these 6 enormous objects appeared, they immediately made everyone feel an inexplicable pressure. Their bodies were as black as ink, with 2 sharp ends. It was hard to tell which side was the head and which was the tail. The smooth, streamlined design made people's hearts palpitate under the sun's touch. It made everyone feel like they were facing 6 monsters. Dongfangchang, Ao and Qiuwuyuan looked at each other. They knew that this was a flying artifact, but they had never seen such a flying artifact before. It was a little strange. The allure beauty looked at Purple Dress and saw that she was also curious. Clearly, she had never seen it before. The loose cultivators were also sizing them up. In the end, their gazes focused on the abdomen of a few flying artifacts. They saw that there were words and strange symbols like Utopia 001 engraved on them. Everyone knew the words Utopia at the front, but they had never seen the symbols at the back. Yu Qianqiu pinched his chin, and his eyebrows twitched. He seemed to be a little proud. These artifacts had abandoned the flashy designs of dragons and beasts, and only chose a single streamlined design. It looked simple, but in fact, it was a combination of some of the design concepts he knew from his previous life. The streamlined design could reduce wind resistance, and only then could the flight speed be maximized. There was no point in having messy designs and engravings. The key was that it was practical. From Utopia 001 to Utopia 010, there were a total of 10 flying artifacts, and they were all named after Utopia. The one in front of him was 6 of them, and the remaining one was the one he had just put into his storage bag. Yu Qianqiu rubbed his hands together excitedly. He couldn't wait to try out the flying magic tool that had integrated the advanced concepts of his past life. In any case, he couldn't return to his past life, so he could only sit on this thing to reminisce. Chapter 417. Beside him, the temptress suddenly pulled him back. She glared at him and asked, "Are you really going to leave me here by myself?" "About that." Yu Qianqiu chuckled. "You're not a loose cultivator, and you didn't take any money either. Why do you have to join in the fun?" As he said that, he turned to the 2 team leaders and the 6 company commanders and said, "Follow me." The 8 of them followed Yu Qianqiu towards a flying transcendent artifact. Ziyi's eyes brightened, and she followed without hesitation. The temptress was taken aback. Suddenly she giggled and said, "So what if I didn't take any money? I don't want it." She smiled coquettishly and followed after them. Yu Qianqiu stomped his feet and turned around. He was speechless. He had never met such a thick-skinned woman before. He then led the group onto the flying transcendent artifact. Everyone looked around. The interior was decorated with many fluorescent stones for illumination. Although it was empty, the tiles were brand new. Clearly they were new. Yu Qianqiu took out a jade archive and examined it. He then smiled and walked to one end. He stomped on a square beneath his feet, and immediately, they heard the buzzing sound of a spring turning from the bottom. Everyone's eyes suddenly lit up. The shields on their left, right, front, and top were retracted with a whoosh. 8 transparent crystal windows appeared before everyone's eyes, allowing them to see the scenery outside. Outside, Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan were startled by the movement of this strange object. Why did it suddenly grow eyes? They then saw Yu Qianqiu and the others standing in front of the transparent crystal at the front of the cone, gesturing to the outside world. These 8 windows allow the user of the flying transcendent artifact to observe the situation outside. They don't have to be exposed to the elements outside. If something unexpected happens, they can close the windows at any time. Yu Qianqiu pointed at the circle of transparent crystal windows as he introduced them. He then stomped on the square beneath his feet. Everyone's vision darkened, and the 8 windows were sealed again. She stepped on it again, and the window opened again. While everyone was still in shock, Yu Qianqiu stepped on the other squares under his feet. The sound of springs rang out, and a wide and thick seat rose up behind his buttocks. He sat down calmly and pointed at the platform in front of him that was filled with spirit stones. He smiled and said, "This is the place to replenish the spirit stones. The pilot can sit here and easily control the entire flying mystic instrument." Under everyone's dumbfounded gazes, Yu Qianqiu stood up and put away all these things before entering the spacious cabin. Everyone looked in the direction of his finger, and saw that on the cabin floor, there was a square every 2 meters. It was obvious that there was something special about it. Sure enough, Yu Qianqiu walked to the side and stomped on it. Another thick chair rose up. He sat down and touched the small hand valve on the side of his body. The back of the chair could be adjusted very comfortably. Everyone was speechless as they watched. He then pulled down one of the hand valves on the cabin wall, and a small transparent window appeared before everyone's eyes. After Yu Qianqiu closed it again, he stood up and said with a smile, "Those sitting on the side can observe the situation outside through this window." After demonstrating once, he quickly made 8 copies of the Jade Archive in his hand and handed them to the 2 team leaders and the 6 company commanders. He said, "I've done it once. You should understand the gist of it by now. Some of the control methods in here are more or less the same. Just take a look and you'll understand." As he spoke, he suddenly shouted in a deep voice, "Each of the 6 companies will have 1 flying transcendent artifact. The 2 team leaders will each be responsible for 3. Keep in touch with each other. Once we're airborne, immediately discuss and form a battle formation. The target is the coast of the Eastern Sea. Execute the order immediately." As soon as they received the order, the 8 of them immediately perked up and responded in unison, "Yes." Then, they quickly exited the mysterious flying transcendent artifact. Ze and the Temptress were so shocked that they felt like they were dreaming. They saw Yu Qianqiu walk to the rear cabin with his hands behind his back and pull open a door. He then walked in while shaking his head. "Is there something new in there?" The 2 girls looked at each other and quickly followed him in. Inside the small space, there was a large bed and a recliner. Yu Qianqiu activated a mechanism, and a large protective shell suddenly appeared above his head, letting in the bright sunlight. Then they saw him leisurely leaning against the recliner, squinting his eyes as he basked in the sun. He looked very relaxed. "There's a bed and recliner on the flying transcendent artifact?" The 2 girls looked at the small space in a daze. Suddenly, the flying transcendent artifact shook. The Temptress blinked her eyes and quickly walked to the transparent crystal window. The 6 flying transcendent artifacts, including this one, slowly rose into the air and adjusted their direction. Below them, Dongfang Chang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan had seen many things in their lives, but they had never seen such a strange flying transcendent artifact. They watched as the 6 flying transcendent artifacts formed a formation in the air, with 1 in the lead and 2 on each side. The one Yu Qianqiu was on was sandwiched in the middle of the formation, becoming the center point of the formation. The 6 flying transcendent artifacts adjusted their direction and quickly flew towards the east. They could vaguely see Yu Qianqiu lying on a recliner and waving at them through the transparent window at the rear of the flying transcendent artifact in the middle. "This kid has finally grown up. This is going to be difficult." Dongfang Chang, Ao shook his head and smiled bitterly. He turned to the people beside him and said, "They came prepared. The coast of the East Sea is going to be lively." Qiu Wuyuan said with a solemn face, "We have to quickly spread the news and let the sects prepare." The 2 of them looked at each other and quickly flew into the 100 Flowers Valley. Ze and the Temptress were leaning against the transparent crystal window, chattering like 2 little girls. Their faces were filled with excitement, and they would occasionally point at the white clouds floating by outside as they chatted and laughed, as if they had never seen them before. Yu Qianqiu lazily turned over on the soft recliner and continued to sleep. The Temptress turned around and looked, then walked over with a smile. She squeezed her butt onto the recliner and poked a certain someone's waist with her sharp index finger. Yu Qianqiu let out a cry and sat up. He rubbed his waist and glared at her angrily. He shouted, "Are you done yet? What do you want?" The Temptress wasn't angry. She looked around and thought to herself, "Thank goodness I'm thick-skinned enough to come here. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to see such a flying instrument." Thinking of this, she winked at Yu Qianqiu seductively. Yu Qianqiu shuddered and immediately lost his temper. He wanted to move away from the Temptress, but the Temptress grabbed his hand and asked, "Let me ask you, was this flying instrument really made by the Jing clan of the 4 major clans? Are you trying to seduce me?" Yu Qianqiu struggled, but he couldn't get rid of the Temptress. He smiled bitterly and said, "Palace leader Yi, if you have something to say, just say it. Don't pull me, okay?" Zi turned around and glanced at the 2 of them. She was already used to their actions. She turned around and pressed her face against the transparent window. Her eyes were pure as she looked at the clouds of different shapes that were being thrown far away. The allure beauty glanced at Ze and bit her alluring red lips with her silver teeth. She grabbed onto Yu Qianqiu and whispered in his ear, "Don't call me Palace Lord Yi in the future. My real name is Yi Kun. You can just call me Yi Kun." Her voice was like a devil's voice, very alluring. Call me Yi-kun? What a mess. Yu Qianqiu's face twitched. He rejected the temptation and said, Don't give me that. Don't you just want to know where this flying instrument came from? The temptress retracted her hand, blinked her eyes, and said in a tone that seemed both real and fake. You even saw through this? That's right. I just want to know. With such a comfortable structure, my pink sect will also buy one. Yu Qianqiu escaped from the temptress' hands. He turned around and sat on the bed. He waved his hand and said, The Jing clan made it. You can buy it from them. I'm just afraid that you can't afford it. How many spiritual stones do I need? The temptress asked. Once you figure out what this flying magic artifact is made of, you won't ask anymore. Yu Qianqiu sneered. The temptress didn't pester him anymore. She knocked around the cabin and thought about it. At the coast of the East Sea, in an uninhabited courtyard, people from different sects were sitting together again. After receiving the news from Dongfangchang, Ao and Qiu Wuyuan, they all looked at each other. A group of people wanted to poach Yu Qianqiu's people, but in the end, they were cheated by Yu Qianqiu. Bai Shan of the four major families sneered. Didn't he know what kind of person Yu Qianqiu was? Every time he saw something good, he would want to take a bite. Now, not only did he not get anything, but he also broke his teeth. We can't let that brat have it. Zhu Xianxian of the Daoyuo sect suddenly shouted with a dark face. The group of people all had mocking expressions on their faces. It seemed like this guy was the one who came up with the idea. If Yu Qianqiu found out about it, who knew who would be the one to blame? However, they believed that it couldn't be kept a secret. Everyone looked at Bai Shan, who was smiling coldly. With the relationship between the four major families and Yu Qianqiu, it was possible that Yu Qianqiu already knew about it. Maybe Yu Qianqiu had personally led his people here to settle the score with the Daoyuo sect. After all, no matter how arrogant Yu Qianqiu was, he wouldn't go against the entire Chinese cultivation world. It was very likely that he would go after the Daoyuo sect. Seeing that everyone was silent, Zhu Xianxian looked around and said, Does no one want to take back the spiritual stones that belong to your sect? Are we going to be cheated by him just like that? Yuan Jiukui of the Six Paths Demon sect chuckled and said, How? Snatch it or trick it? Do you think that we can force him to hand it over by issuing a decree in the name of the Cultivation Alliance? Yuan Jiukui, you have a good idea. Zhu Xianxian's eyes lit up. He slapped his thigh and said loudly, We will issue a decree in the name of the Cultivation Alliance. Does he dare to go against the entire Cultivation Alliance? Yuan Jiukui rolled his eyes and sneered. Zhu Xianxian, don't talk nonsense. What do you mean my idea is good? If you want to do it, do it. Don't drag me into it. As he spoke, he stood up and said, The war is imminent. I advise everyone to make a decision carefully. Don't let the Cultivation Alliance cause trouble first. I can't make the decision on this matter. I'll have to ask the consecrators in the sect. I'll take my leave first. Goodbye. Only the people in charge of communication were present. The real experts were not present. Yuan Jiukui, your Six Paths Demon sect is also a big sect. Is there a need to be so afraid of trouble? Zhu Xianxian's face sank. Yuan Jiukui, who was walking out, turned around and stared at Zhu Xianxian. He shook his head and said with a bitter smile, Zhu Xianxian, something should be forgotten. There's no need to take it to heart. Sigh. You guys continue the discussion. In short, the Six Paths Demon sect will follow the final decision of the Cultivation Alliance. Then he turned around and said, I almost forgot. I have to quickly order the hidden sentries in the sect. There's nothing that kid doesn't dare to do. I hope he doesn't cause any accidents when he runs into him. The group of people watched him disappear outside the door. Bai Shan also stood up and cupped his hands at everyone. The four families are the same as the Six Paths Demon sect. We will follow the final decision of the Cultivation Alliance. I have something to do. I'll take my leave first. With one or two people taking the lead, the other sects found excuses to leave. In the end, Zhu Xianxian was left alone with a gloomy expression. A good discussion had failed just like that. Leaving the two girls in the room, Yu Qianqiu opened the cabin door and walked out. He then closed it again. More than 100 people were sitting neatly in 2 rows in the cabin. When they heard the voice, they immediately stood up and saluted. Yu Qianqiu signaled everyone to sit down. He then asked the leader of the team, "How's the flying artifact? Are you used to it?" "Very good. It's better than all the ones I've used before." The leader was a little excited. As the two were talking, the flying artifact suddenly slowed down. The two of them swayed. The leader suddenly turned around and shouted, "Company leader, what's going on?" "Leader, someone stopped the flying artifact of the leader of the second team." The leader of the first team who was driving the artifact replied loudly. The leader flashed to the front and seemed to be communicating with the people of the second team. Yu Qianqiu walked over slowly with an expressionless face. Looking through the transparent window, he saw a dozen people in a small flying artifact blocking his way. He snorted coldly and said, "Let's ask who stopped us first." The leader nodded and quickly got it through telepathy. He then reported, "It's a patrol team formed by a few small sects of the Cultivation Alliance. They want us to show our pass token." Yu Qianqiu's expression softened a little. He nodded and said, "I'm doing my job. I'll cooperate with them." The leader took the order, opened the cabin door and flew out. After showing the pass token, he negotiated with those people. Not only did those people not leave, but they also followed the leader. After the leader flashed in, he asked, "They said they've heard of your name for a long time. They want to pay you a visit." After coming out of the special forces, there was a rule that the title leader could not be used outside. Huh? Oh. Let them in. Yu Qianqiu was stunned. The leader went to the cabin door and let more than a dozen people in. As soon as these people from the small sects came in, they immediately saw more than 100 masked people staring at them. They suddenly felt a little uneasy and nervous. It was said that these people were all experts of the tribulation stage. "This is the mystery you want to see." The leader waved his hand and said. Yu Qianqiu laughed and walked over. He smiled amiably and said, "Everyone, you've worked hard. I'm Yu Qianqiu. I don't know what I can do for you." Although Yu Qianqiu's reputation was not very good, his history of struggle had long been something that the young disciples of the various sects talked about. Many grassroots disciples dreamed of becoming someone like Yu Qianqiu. When Yanbu Gui brought people to challenge him, Yu Qianqiu killed his opponent with one strike. Although the young disciples of the various sects did not see it with their own eyes, it was spread like wildfire. Especially when he said, "So what if I'm famous or not? One strike is enough." This made the grassroots disciples of the various sects worship him crazily. Coincidentally, these people were sent here to investigate suspicious cultivators. When they saw the 6 extraordinary flying artifacts, they thought it was someone from a large sect. They did not expect to meet a legendary grassroots idol. So one of them mustered up the courage to ask for a meeting with the leader. The leader wanted to refuse, but he remembered that Yu Qianqiu was here. It was not good for him to make a decision for him, so he came to ask for instructions. Who knew that Yu Qianqiu would agree without hesitation? The young disciples thought that Yu Qianqiu would be like those people from the large sects, and just say a few perfunctory words to them. Who knew that he would be so easy to talk to? The group of disciples from the small sects immediately relaxed a lot. They all bowed and said, "I've heard of Mr.'s great name for a long time. We've come to pay our respects." "No need to be so polite. We're all friends. If you continue to be so polite, I won't be happy," Yu Qianqiu said, pretending to be angry. "Do you also think that I'm like the rumors outside? A scum or a madman in the cultivation world?" The dozen or so people were seen through by him. They all scratched their heads and smiled awkwardly. One of them mustered up the courage to reply, "To be honest, mister, we were indeed a little worried before. Now that we've met, mister, we know that those were all rumors." "Yes. I believe that what you said is the truth. Other than being a trustworthy person, I also like people who tell the truth the most." Yu Qianqiu patted his shoulder kindly and sighed. "But rumors are terrible. Maybe after many years, when your cultivation is successful, you will inevitably encounter similar rumors. I hope that you can treat it with a normal heart. Don't be like me. Sometimes, when I can't hold it in anymore, I get into a fight. It's clearly something I'm in the right, but the more I fight, the worse my reputation becomes. Sigh. I'm a good example. I hope that you can learn from it. This is my advice to you as a person who has been through it. The group of people fell into deep thought when they heard this. The disciple who was patted on the shoulder was a little agitated. From what I see, someone is clearly jealous of Mr. And that's why they purposely spread rumors to slander you. But so what? If I had Mr.'s ability, I definitely wouldn't forgive anyone who dares to talk about me like that. That's too shallow, too shallow. Yu Qianqiu shook his shoulder and warned him. Don't learn from me. If that day comes, you must endure when you need to. You must know that if you take a step back, everything will be fine. If you endure for a while, everything will be fine. Don't be impulsive, understand? Ze and the temptress, who were in the rear cabin, had already opened the cabin door to see what was going on. Now that they heard Yu Qianqiu's tireless and sincere words, the temptress's expression was indescribably strange. Seeing that the group of young cultivators were all silent, Yu Qianqiu patted the disciple's shoulder again and laughed. It's fate that we can meet. Let's not talk about unhappy things. This is my new flying artifact. It's also unique in the cultivation world. Dongfang Chang, Ao from Fuxian Island and Qiu Wuyuan from 10,000 Demons wanted to come up and have a look, but I coaxed them away. Why don't you all take some time to look around? Let me be the host. Hearing that such a famous person didn't even have the qualifications to come here, these people were indeed eager to try. However, after looking at each other, they all bowed to Yu Qianqiu. The disciple cupped his hands and said, We appreciate Mr.'s kindness, but we have been ordered to come here. We don't dare to delay for too long, so we bid farewell to Mr. Since you all have important matters to attend to, I won't disturb you anymore. Yu Qianqiu thought for a while and turned to Team Leader 1. We didn't prepare any greeting gifts. Let's give each of you 10 top-grade spirit stones. No need, no need. The group of people quickly waved their hands. But Team Leader 1 didn't say anything. He resolutely carried out the order and stuffed a handful of spirit stones into everyone's hands. The group of people held the spirit stones and looked at each other, not knowing what to do. Yu Qianqiu smiled amiably and said, Take it all. Take it as a greeting gift. Take it as a witness to our reunion. Hearing this, the group couldn't refuse and could only thank him. After they left, the 6 flying artifacts began to speed up. Yu Qianqiu was still waving at them from the cabin door. More than 10 people stood on the small flying artifacts and watched as Yu Qianqiu and the rest disappeared into the distance. They sighed as they looked at the spirit stones in their hands. With Yu Qianqiu's current status in the cultivation world, he didn't even pay attention to the sect masters of a sect. Yet he looked favorably upon these useless grassroots disciples. Furthermore, he patiently encouraged them with kind words, and even gifted them with a large amount of spirit stones. The disciple who had close contact with Yu Qianqiu turned to look at the crowd and said, All the sects say that Mr. Yu is a scum and a lunatic. I hope that the people who say these things can be as scum and as crazy as Mr. Yu. Then our cultivation world will be peaceful. Another person sighed. It's obvious that Mr. Yu is in the limelight. All the sects are obviously working together to suppress him. Sigh. Similar things don't only happen in the cultivation world. We've seen such things in all the sections. Be careful with your words. We can only say these things here. Don't spread it back to the sect. Otherwise, we'll be in trouble. What are you afraid of? Don't tell me someone will tell on us. Sigh. Mr. Yu is a good person. A group of disciples who didn't know the truth were bored. They were chattering and vindicating Yu Qianqiu in a small area. It just so happened that the journey was lonely. He didn't expect to become a teacher who spread the truth again. Yu Qianqiu was in a good mood. He said to Team Leader 1, If we encounter similar checks again, invite all the young disciples from the various sects who have low cultivation bases. If they are that old, forget it. Those old and stubborn people have already set their minds. It's hard to change them. Don't waste my breath. Just deal with it. Understood. Team Leader 1 nodded. Just as Yu Qianqiu was about to turn and leave, he suddenly thought of something and snorted. There is one exception. If you encounter people from Daoyuo sect, tell Team Leader 2 to first send people to cripple them. Then don't let any of them go. Capture them all. I want to give Daluo sect a greeting gift. After giving his instructions, Yu Qianqiu returned to the rear cabin with his hands behind his back. When he entered, he saw Ziyi looking at him strangely. The allure beauty covered her mouth and giggled. Mr. Yu is indeed a kind person. He's the model for all sects to learn from. I knew you were a bad woman. Yu Qianqiu rolled his eyes at her. He said to Ziyi with a serious expression, some people's words cannot be trusted easily, especially those who speak ill of others behind their backs. Hearing this, the allure beauty laughed even more happily. She continued, especially those who speak nonsense and lie without blinking. You can't trust the words of these people. Mr. Yu, do you think I'm right? Haha. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.